across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 electric hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved. Get it off your chest. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000. Lots to talk about today. It's good to talk on Talk. Or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Wednesday, June the 17th. Here's what's coming up. A Russian warship opens fire off the coast of the Isle of Wight, and we still haven't heard a word. Not a single dicky bird from our new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis. Bad start, Dan. But don't worry, with the pitiful budget you're being allocated by your welfare-obsessed Chancellor, things can only get worse. Meanwhile, preening himself in France at his final G7, two-tier Kia dismisses Putin's act of aggression as nothing to worry about. And the Ministry of Defence tries to lie its way out of the controversy and kill the true story of this shocking English Channel incident by urging the plucky pensioners whose yacht was fired warning shots at not to speak out. Good luck with that. They have spoken out. The MOD said the couple's boat drifted close to the warship in heavy fog. There was no fog. Welcome to Defence of the Realm Labour style. A sick joke and a shambolic bid to deceive us. Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. Also on today's action-packed show, the ludicrous Prime Minister remains in denial, convincing himself he can somehow beat off the challenges from Andy Burnham if he wins Makerfield, former Defence Ministers John Healey and Al Carnes, who are clearly on manoeuvres, Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, Uncle Tom Cobley and all. Stand by for a long summer of non-government as Labour's chaotic rabble battle it out for the leadership like rats in a sack. 0344 499 1000. In other news, Fury as a rape gang victim is instructed by an ITV producer not to mention the race of the monsters who stole her innocence. Here's to Sammy Woodhouse for defying this simpering white guilt order and mentioning it during her GMB interview with Susanna Reid and Labour stooge Ed Balls. Two-tier broadcasting at its very worst. 0344 499 1000. Also, I'll talk to a former top cop about the shock decision not to prosecute Sikh killer Vikram Digwar's brother. He clearly tried to help his sinister sibling evade the law, and it looked pretty obvious he was an accomplice in the murder of anti-white racism victim Henry Novak, a crime that carries a heavy prison sentence. Why are they letting Gurpreet Digwar off? Why? 0344 499 1000. Plus, former Home Secretary Jack Straw is leading demands for a police inquiry into the bungling social workers and public officials whose alleged serious negligence enabled tragic baby Preston Davies' gay adoptive parents to sexually abuse their child to death. Surely the people who saw the signs but ignored them need to be punished. Jack Shaw's right, isn't he? 0344 499 1000. Always the social workers, isn't it? Do they ever do anything right, social workers? 0344 499 1000. And finally, Meghan Markle is reported to be heading back to Britain for the first time since she ran away from her duties with Prince Harry. Street parties to celebrate the difficult Duchess's emotional return are being planned all across the nation. Not. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday afternoon together. Let's go straight over to my first guest. He is the Sun's political columnist, former Sun political editor, Westminster veteran, of course, Trevor Kavanagh. Welcome, Trev.
Hi, Kevin.
Good to have you on the show. You wrote an excellent piece in The Sun, quoting that film, Network, from 1976. Peter Finch was the star. He played a kind of disaffected news anchor who suddenly turned around to his audience and said, I've had enough of this. We've all had enough of it. We're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. That is what you have suggested that the Makerfield, that's the attitude you suggested the people of Makerfield should adopt, and that even the Restore Britain Rupert Lowe fans in Makerfield should think of the country and vote reform, because Restore, they might divide the right-wing vote. They have got no chance of winning that by-election if they drop out, or if Restore Britain supporters diplomatically, strategically vote for reform. Reform can win. If they don't, they can't. This is... I've had it said to me, Trev, last few days, oh, well, it's just a by-election. It's different to general elections. This is the most pivotal by-election in British political history. It's not just another by-election. If it goes to Burnham, if Burnham wins, pretty much he's going to be our next Prime Minister. And if you thought times were bad under Keir Starmer, you wait for Andy to get into number 10, right?
Absolutely. And I think that the 77,000 voters of Makerfield at 8 o'clock in the morning, when the ballot box opens, will have 12 or 14 hours to decide the future of Britain. It is in their hands uniquely. For one moment, one day in their lives, they're going to have a say which will rule the outcome, frankly, of Britain and its future. So, yes, and this is the moment when they should all do as Peter Finch said in 1976, go to your windows, open the windows and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Except that they don't have to shout. All they have to do is put their X on the right spot in the ballot box, which is for reform.
Now, moving on to our current Prime Minister, I will, of course, read the candidates in the Makerfield by-election in just a little while, because we have to do that due to broadcasting rules. But in terms of our current Prime Minister, doubtless enjoying his very last G7 in France at the moment, such a special expedition for him, he actually took his wife along, Queen Vic. So I think perhaps he knows this is his last hurrah. That said, I've asked you this before. Now, I know politicians, they sort of all instinctively tend to cling on. They don't climb down easily. It's in their creed, it's in their culture. But I am beginning to worry about the psychological stability of our Prime Minister. You know, he's seeing these attacks coming from him all sides. As I said in my monologue, you know, clearly Andy Burnham, if he wins Makerfield, is going to come for him, you know, all guns blazing. John Healey, former Defence Secretary, and former Defence Minister Al Carnes are clearly on manoeuvres as well. Let's not forget Angela Rayner. Wes Streeting is there, and there may be others. And yet he says, I'm going to dig my heels in, I'm not going anywhere. A leadership battle will be divisive and not good for the country. Well, you're going to get one, Keir, whether you like it or not. And we all know that this will prove to be a summer of non-government as these Labour rabble fight it out like rats in a sack. To be fair, we've seen that from the Tories in the past. But this Prime Minister, I mean, can't he read the room? Doesn't he see it's all over for him? What is the matter with him?
Well, he is politically illiterate, so that's probably the truth of the matter. He can't see the wood for the trees, and most of the wood is between his ears. So I think that he knows, or should know, that whatever happens tomorrow, whatever the outcome of the by-election, he is a dead man walking. Because even if Burnham doesn't get a seat in Parliament and immediately launch a challenge to his leadership, Wes Streeting has declared that he will. Now, simply out of desperation, I think, in order to get rid of Keir Starmer, I think that those who might previously have been reluctant to put their names forward to back Wes Streeting, and he has had trouble getting the 81 MPs needed for that challenge, otherwise he would have launched it long ago when he had the chance. I think they're going to say, we've had enough of Keir Starmer. We don't care what who succeeds him as long as he doesn't carry on.
Indeed. Now, let's have a listen to our dear leader, Keir Starmer, speaking at G7 this morning. Just off camera, I think, were the men in white coats ready to take him away to a padded cell. But here he is talking about Andy Burnham.
Would you bring Burnham back into your cabinet?
Oh, Andy's a great asset, and yes, I want him to have a big role in government.
Are you going to call him at the weekend and invite him back into your cabinet?
Well, I'm sure I'll talk to Andy after the weekend. Of course I will. I've spoken to him many times in recent weeks, and when I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined, and we worked very well together. He's a huge asset. He's been a fantastic mayor in Manchester, and if he comes back into Parliament, I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
Why, Trevor, does he suddenly feel it's fantastic that Andy Burnham's coming back into Parliament if he wins the Makerfield election? He's a fantastic asset. It's going to give him a cabinet job. We will get a cabinet job, by the way. Probably Prime Minister is the job he will get. But only a few months back, he blocked Andy Burnham standing in a by-election because he said he was much better off doing the great job, the alleged great job he's doing in Manchester. So suddenly he's completely changed course about Andy Burnham. The guy's just lying, isn't he? And he is living in a kind of self-delusional parallel universe. It's quite disturbing to have a Prime Minister like this.
I hope you're not suggesting that our beloved Prime Minister is a hypocrite, Kevin.
Yes, I am.
But that's basically what he's been born to do. He is desperate to keep the questions from flowing. So he has to say something in return to these examinations that he has to go through with reporters. Burnham is there in order, as you say, to take the biggest job in the cabinet, which is Keir Starmer's own job as Prime Minister. There's no way that he's going to take a big job in the cabinet in any other role because he's going to challenge. And he said he was going to challenge Starmer. It's all a game as far as they're concerned. It's all over. It's just a question of how bloody and long-lasting it takes to drag him out of that office.
Well said, Trevor. Let me ask you a sort of leading question. I'll tell you what I think. So we're talking about this retired couple, these plucky pensioners who had warning shots fired at them by a Russian warship in the English Channel a couple of mornings ago. Now, they are revealing today that, first of all, the Ministry of Defence tried to shut them down, said, don't tell the story, keep quiet about it, because it will be inflammatory. And also that the MOD, in their statement, entered this factor into the equation that what happened was that this sailing boat owned by these two plucky pensioners inadvertently sailed close to the Russian warship because it was heavy fog. They're saying today, well, A, the MOD is not going to tell us not to tell the story, so we're telling the story. And B, there was no fog. So this is extraordinary, that our idea, defence of the realm Labour style, is to try to quell any problems, any feelings of fear over the fact that the Russian Navy's in the English Channel unleashing its weapons, by sort of diffusing the situation, saying, oh, don't inflame it, oh, let's pretend there was fog. Meanwhile, what are your thoughts on the fact? I think this is an utter disgrace, that this massive incident that a lot of people are very concerned about, so far, no comment whatsoever from the new Defence Secretary, Secretary of Defence Dan Jarvis. What's he playing at? He owes us a comment at least, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and the fact that he's been so silent basically reflects the whole character of this government, which has increasingly gone to ground. It's in hiding from the electorate over the last 18 months. Which is basically all the time they've been in office. And, you know, this is not just over this one particular incident, which is highly dangerous and very significant, but over everything where they come to grief over their policies, and particularly from the left wing of the government, about things like the community, the fact that we have riots going on caused by police failures to act properly in terms of identifying the suspects in certain crimes, in fear of inflaming passions. This is the same sort of thing. Don't upset the horses. And in this case, it's the horses who are worried about our threadbare defense and the fact that the Russians come in and cock a snook at us by firing something, we don't know quite what, but certainly munitions into the air or into the water or at the targets of these two lucky pensioners, as you call them. And, you know, we are running scared of the Russians. This incident would be a major inflammatory disaster for the government anyway, but it's come in the context of the fact that we are not spending enough money to defend the realm.
Jane and Alan Kelvey, 69 and 71. Alan Kelvey told The Telegraph, he said, they're trying to close the story down, saying it was foggy and they were shooting flares up. It's rubbish. Asked why they were being apparently blamed, Mr. Kelvey said, it's inflammatory, isn't it? So that's what the MOD's response to this shocking incident was to try to lie and deceive us. It was all a bit of a misunderstanding. Keir Starmer, the only senior member of the government to talk about this shocking incident, which is extraordinary in itself, said, oh, it's just a skirmish, it's nothing, just rules of the sea and so on and so forth. You know, this exposes the fact that the Russians are probably going to do this time and time again because they're taunting us. They know we can't do anything about it. They read the papers, they watch the TV news, they know we don't have any defence because we've stopped spending money on it. Can I get a last response from you, Trevor, on a BBC Question Time? You ever been on it, by the way?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
What you mean when they used to have decent panellists? Now, the audience. Now, just a couple of months ago, you probably remember, there was a big storm because there were these two migrants in the audience questioning the panel about, you know, the horror of the government's crackdown on the migrant crisis, you know, and the plight of long-suffering asylum seekers. These were two guys who both arrived here illegally. And have since been granted asylum. So people say, why are you allowing this kind of person onto the show? It has now been confirmed that the BBC's Question Time Immigration Special, they did approach local charities working in the sector, helping migrants and asylum seekers, to include people with, as they put it, lived experience of seeking asylum. They planted those people in the audience deliberately. So they do stack the audiences of Question Time in a left-wing way, don't they? They always deny this, but they do.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the tactic of the left wing down the ages, which is basically to silence the public, to feed them rubbish, I mean, for want of a better word, and to pretend that things are other than they are. Now, had the BBC said when they introduced these audience members that they were from a certain charity and that they were representing a certain charity's view on immigration, that would have been different because you'd have known where they were coming from. But it wasn't revealed until after the event. And I think this is, all of the points you've raised so far in this conversation, Kevin, have been linked by the fact that this government is left of centre, left, if not getting increasingly far left. They talk about the far right. This is a far left government. And the whole point of their operations is to conceal from the public the things that anger them, that make them think about voting for another party, like they might tomorrow. And so you're fed rubbish. And
they just lie to us, Trevor. They lie to us. They do
lie to us.
They lie to us, and it's a disgrace. But it's great to have you on the show. I want to get you on straight after those results in Makerfield, when we can finally not have to read this list of candidates anymore. Thank you very much, Trevor. And now, because we discussed the Makerfield by-election, I must, as you all know, read the list of candidates in that by-election due to broadcasting rules. Here they are. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gold, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party, And on that bombshell, we'll talk about the World Cup next. Stick around.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, literally like putting a wall in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about the World Cup. It's the big match, of course, 9 o'clock. England play Croatia. Go on, boys. Go on, the Three Lions. We begin our campaign and hopes are high. Now, there are hordes of England fans in Dallas following the England team around, and they are behaving in their usual manner. Nothing bad so far. They all got kicked out of a bar last night because they were so rowdy, and they'd sort of occupied the rodeo ride in the corner of the bar. The cops turned out and kicked them out of this bar, but nothing serious so far. But there's a new chant in town. England fans, well, lots of people chant this, but football fans have taken it on board. It's one of those few areas that all rival fans agree on. They chant, gonna have to be careful here because broadcasting rules again. If you heard this nasty word, you'd no doubt reel back in shock and horror. You never heard anything like it, so I'm not allowed to say it. But I'm going to give you a kind of version of the word. And then you can work out what it actually is. It rhymes with banker, by the way. Here we go. Keir Starmer's a tosser. Keir Starmer's a tosser. Only it's not tosser. You know what I'm saying? Broadcasting rules, folks. Great, aren't they? Right. They've been banned. FIFA are furious about this chant. They're also furious about England fans' tendency to Keir Starmer's a tosser. It doesn't have the same ring, does it? It doesn't have the same strength. I'm allowed to say that, by the way. Why am I allowed to say tosser, but I'm not allowed to say the word that rhymes with banker? Welcome to the wonderful world of broadcasting rules. But there you go. But seriously, FIFA, who run the World Cup, they say, well, the fans can't sing this because it's political. They also don't like England fans' tendency to sort of chant wartime historical songs. They like to do the theme to the Dam Busters and things like that, don't they, to denote our glorious historical victories in conflict and war. They don't want us to do that either, our England fans, because they say that's political. So basically they're shutting down the way that our fans, England fans, like to support our team. I say they can go to hell, but you know what they're like. Let's talk to the Director of Popular Conservatism and a major football fan, even though he supports Southampton, Mark Littlewood. Hi, Mark. Oh, look at you.
Yeah, hi, Kev. You're right. As you know, I take a fleeting interest in football. So, yeah, I've got half an eye on proceedings in Dallas.
Well, you know that World Cup thing. Have you heard that that's on? And that England are playing tonight. Seriously, I can see you've got World Cup fever. I'm looking forward to the game myself. Of course, we all are. A nation expects. But what do you make of this? That FIFA are banning our fans from their favourite new chant. And by the way, you all know this, as an attender, me at Premier League games, you to Championship League games, this is what they chant. Football fans, it's their new favourite generic chant. Keir Starmer's A rhymes with bank. FIFA say you do this, you'd be thrown out of the ground because that's political. It's pathetic, isn't it?
Absolutely pathetic. And it's worse than that, really, Kev. FIFA are being pretty hypocritical here. I mean, let's go through this bit by bit, right? How are you going to police this, OK? Because I think it unlikely that it will just be 2 or 3 England fans who break into this chant. I'm expecting all viewers to hear this chant very loud and very clear.
They will,
Thousands will be singing it at the top of their voices, in part reacting to an attempt to prevent them from singing it. And I suspect it will be loud and clear over your TV sets from 9 o'clock this evening, which I don't know, is that actually after the watershed? I'm not quite sure of the broadcasting rules.
That's a good point. Funnily enough, if I was broadcasting, you know, I used to do the evening show, if it was after 9 p.m, the family viewing watershed, I could use the dreaded W word, but I can't until then.
Well, there you go. I'm delighted to hear that England fans won't be breaking Ofcom's broadcasting rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good to know. But they will break FIFA's diktat. Yeah. Also, you know, the FIFA. I think this is classic FIFA. So many officials in football are these kind of cod woke types. They pretend they're woke and left wing and all of that. You know, take the knee and all that claptrap. So FIFA are also telling England fans they have a tendency to evoke the Second World War in particular. You know, you could say that's over jingoistic, but I think it's all just good fun. And they have their favourite is the song is to go you know, the Dam Busters tune. Well, FIFA are trying to ban them from singing that as well. You know, they don't like the idea of evoking war. I mean, come on, just let these fans enjoy themselves, for God's sake.
Yes, I suspect, I mean, you're right, these are FIFA regulations. There's a whole bunch of ludicrous US regulations as well about the size and shape of flags that you can take into the stadium. So it's a mixture. Yeah. It's a mixture of two nightmarish regulatory regimes colliding and then imposing themselves on the England fans. Look, the important thing you sort of got to bear in mind here is this is all sort of tongue-in-cheek, right? The songs about the Second World War aren't sung in advance of you know, tearing into a whole load of German fans on the other side of the street or something. It is all said in jest. And I think there's a culture clash here because there's a kind of dry witticism to football chants on the terraces.
There really is. They're hilarious, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Very sad. A lot of football chants are very clever and they are possessed of a very dry wit.
Exactly right. In sharp contrast, in the United States of America, although I am a fan of American sports, they're all a bit synthetic. You know, they just chant, "Go Chargers, charge! Go Chargers, charge!" That sort of thing. There's no humour. There's no wit. There is rivalry in American sports, but there's no segregation of fans singing songs which are often based on anthems, right? Often based on religious songs in English stadia. Well, that just doesn't have an equivalent in the States. So I'm kind of guessing and rather hoping that the stadium authorities will just be rather puzzled about what is happening, but will recognise that it isn't a threat. I did see one England fan complaining about all this, saying that it's quite weird being in Dallas. I apparently can't take my flag in because it's half an inch too long, and I apparently can't sing this witty Keir Starmer song about my views of the Prime Minister, but I can pop across the street and buy a submachine gun if I want.
In Walmart.
Yeah, so it's pretty extraordinary state of affairs. And here's why I mentioned, Kev, that I thought FIFA are being hypocritical here. And by God, they are. Because why does the apolitical rule, if so strictly enforced, apply only to fans? At the time of the World Cup draw, FIFA decided to give its inaugural 2026 International Peace Prize to Donald Trump, a political figure. I imagine that Donald Trump is probably going to be presenting the World Cup trophy to whoever wins it in a month or so's time. Yeah. So it seems to be incredibly partial, this rule on not involving politics in sport. Look, I'm not saying they should go.
He thoroughly deserved it, though, Mark. He's brought for all he's done for peace in the Middle East. I mean, you know, major war.
Well, quite. It's a fairly ironic. But either go down this route of saying no politics in sport, in which case you're not showering any president or prime minister with any sort of praise. You don't have them involved in the opening ceremonies or presenting any trophies or on any of your publicity material. If they want to come along, I guess they can buy a seat or buy a box, just like any other punter. But no, for FIFA, they seem very keen to get involved in politics. It's just the England fans who can't. And then they've drawn no sort of line here. OK, the Keir Starmer song is clearly about a politician, but I'm a bit surprised it's not protected by First Amendment rights in the USA, by the way, which categorically support freedom of speech. So FIFA are coming up against the American Constitution.
Very good point. I mean, also, Mark, the FIFA, as you alluded to, I mean, if fans, England fans and other fans, want to bring flags or banners larger than 2 metres by 1.5 metres, they need to send a photo of it in and to get written permission. I mean, this is bureaucracy, red tape gone crazy. This is insane.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And it's a great pity as well. It's not just red tape gone mad. One of the great things about watching the World Cup isn't just the quality of the sport and, you know, seeing a whole load of teams you've never heard of before and hoping for a few upsets. It's that the stadiums are decked out in different colours and different flags. And the idea that there's this sort of regulation about what you can bring in. I mean, what harm can you really cause with a flag that's a bit bigger than those regulations? And I thought the USA was supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. Absolutely. Well, it appears to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, as long as you don't want to sing a song criticising Keir Starmer, and as long as you don't bring in a piece of fabric to a sporting match which is slightly too big, which is a pretty strange view of freedom, in my view. I'm
just watching these drunk fans, England fans, being evicted from this bar in Dallas. The cops look like they've no doubt encountered some pretty strange situations being cops in Dallas, but they've never seen anything like this. OK, Mark, just before you go, I've got to put you on the spot. Score tonight?
Well, I'm actually a little bit cautious. I think England will top the group, but they'd probably accept a draw tonight, so I wouldn't be too disappointed if it's a draw and then we hammer Ghana and Panama in the last 2 matches, top the group and all the way to the final. Yeah, they're wily old campaigners, Croatia. There will be no walkover. But fingers crossed. Great to talk to you, Mark. All the best. Come on, England. Mark Littlewood there, Director of Popular Conservatism, as he mentioned, a bit of a football fan too. You'd never guess, would you? Next up, we're going to talk about Sammy Woodhouse. She's a rape gang victim, a survivor. She was on my show. She was on this show on Monday afternoon. She went on to GMB, ITV's breakfast show yesterday, Good Morning Britain, hosted by Susanna Reid and Labour stooge Ed Balls. And the producer told her, don't mention the race of the people who raped you. Don't mention their race. In other words, don't say that they were Muslim men of Pakistani heritage, which is what most of the rape gang members were. This is what goes on in television. This is what goes on all across the country. She has since, Sammy, to her credit, went on and just said it anyway. She said, they were Pakistani men of Muslim men of Pakistani heritage, and I don't know why your producer told me not to say that. So she hoisted them by their own petard and has since received an apology from the programme. But what were they thinking? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. As I was saying before the break, Sammy Woodhouse, a rape gang victim and survivor, was instructed by a producer on Good Morning Britain 2 mornings ago not to mention the race of the men who raped her and who stole her innocence, who tortured her, drugged her, raped her. Don't say that what they were, as in Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. She went straight on and said it. But what on earth? We've reached out to Good Morning Britain saying, what were you thinking? That programme has apologised to Sammy. We're sorry about that. Yeah, but why? Why did that guy say that? This is just this white guilt claptrap. This is the same syndrome that enabled those monsters, those rape gangs, to do what they did. 250,000 victims, mostly white, vulnerable girls, many of them underage. It allowed them to rape and torture and drug those kids with impunity, because we're all worried about being accused of racism. Don't mention their race. It's pretty pertinent. Let's talk to Marilyn Hawes, shall we? She's a veteran campaigner for child welfare. Marilyn, welcome to the show. This is exactly the syndrome, as I just said. White people all guilt-tripping about pointing the finger at people of colour that allowed these rape gangs to get away with what they were doing for about a decade, and they're still doing it. So this white guilt, oh my God, don't for God's sake say the truth that the vast majority of these gang rapists are Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. Don't say that, because that might make us look like racists. What on earth was that producer? What was Good Morning Britain thinking, telling Sammy Woodhouse not to reveal the race of the men who defiled her and stole her innocence? To hell with them.
Well, you're talking about two-tier media now, aren't you? We've got two-tier prisons, we've got two sentences, we've got two-tier policing, now we've got two-tier media.
Exactly.
Do you know what, Sammy? You've got to, every so often people pick the wrong person, don't they? Yeah. Sammy survived and thrived and has a family and is married. What she went through, as have other women, others haven't. So to take on Sammy Woodhouse, good luck. And I actually applauded her. I sent her a message and said, well done you, because I would have done exactly the same. Nobody would silence me. Nobody has ever silenced me. And I call it out. And I've been called a racist over time because Sky News were the same. They closed down on me because I was saying, you've got to wake up and smell the coffee. This is who it is. They're also Afghan. They're also Iranian men. But whatever they are all Muslim, right? And there's where your problem lies. But if she would know a Pakistani person from an Iranian person, no doubt, and she would have been told it. And good for her, because do you know what? I feel so sorry for Rupert Lowe, because he's had death threats, he's had hate mail, you name it. What that man has done is what the government dragged their sloppy feet over. They don't want.
Yeah, well, see, here's the deal. I applaud Rupert Lowe for his independent rape gang inquiry, because at least it spurred the government to finally get real and call the major public inquiry, public funded, of course. So I applaud what Rupert did, and that his inquiry did not shy away from the truth.
But
The truth is that the vast majority of the members of these vile rape gangs, who systematically, over many years, raped, tortured, drugged, they think as many as 250,000 mainly white, young, vulnerable girls, that their race was they were Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. And Rupert didn't shy away from that. But we know also, don't we, Marilyn, that the actual public inquiry, the national public inquiry, which is trundling away right now, no one really noticing, I'm not quite sure what they're up to, but it is actually underway. But they, when they started this inquiry, they had what they call a victims panel. They got 6 girls who were victims. A couple of them pretty well known to me, Ellie Reynolds being one of them. And 3 of those girls quit because they were told by people involved in the inquiry, don't focus on the race of the rape gang members.
I know. And the thing is, honestly, Kevin, I have more faith in what Rupert's achieved than anything that comes out of what might come out, if it ever comes out, from the inquiry. And now they've got a problem because Rupert has laid it out there in chapter and verse of the truth of what really happened.
It's sainthood can't be far away, can it?
Well, no, but you know what?
Yeah. Let's not kind of you know, put him on too high a pedestal. But I do think that's a good thing what he's done.
But it's a brilliant thing what he's done, and he got funding for it and ran with it, and I applaud him for it, because what is the truth? He's said the truth and he's nailed it. And Sammy Wood has the trouble is, in a lot of mainstream media, you've got an awful lot of people that have come out of a woke university with woke and lefty ideas that don't think...
It's a left-wing industry. It's simple as that. It's as simple as that. We know that.
People like yourselves, Mike Graham, another one, you know him well, I know him well.
I don't think I know that name.
You know, but you go with the truth. You're not frightened of the truth, and that's why it's good that you lot exist, because and she's right to say it, and good for her. And
she also said, to her enormous credit, Marilyn, she actually said in the interview, I don't know why your producer told me I can't say the race of the men who raped me. That's not going to help. But it's simple. You used a phrase that I used earlier, and I should have said it on air. What we're talking about here is two-tier broadcasting.
Exactly. And I had similar happen to me, actually, with BBC.
Oh, yeah.
And years ago now, I was asked to go on BBC Breakfast, and I always wanted to go on there. And it was something about, I think it was my own case, going back, how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And the voice in the earpiece of, she's on BBC Radio 5 Live now, she was obviously told to say something, and I ripped it out of them. And I said, you are implying that I'm doing this. Oh, that's what they were implying, that I was whipping up some
race hate.
Yes, and I knew. I said, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Just be quiet, because what I'm saying is the truth, and I speak the truth. And also, while I'm on air, because I know your research, you wanted me to talk about that awful case of the little boy as well.
Yeah, Jack Straw, former Home Secretary, leading demands for a police investigation into the social workers, hospital officials who ignored the signs and enabled this vile gay couple, that poor little baby Preston Davies' adopted parents, to sexually abuse him to death.
It's worse. It's satanic torture. I have cried over this child. I really have.
But we need to prosecute the people who ignored these signs.
100%. But you're look about Victoria Colombier, look about baby Peter, look about the poor little girl that was beaten up by her father and all that.
Yeah. But there's never any prosecutions. This time we should stop.
I know, but you know what's going to come out soon, and if it does, I am going to implode.
Lessons have been learned.
That's it. That old chestnut.
Lessons have been learned.
And what about if you stood up and said, we have merrily screwed up, and we've got to live with that, and blah blah blah, but don't you come out with lessons have been learned. But I want to know tomorrow, do you know what I'm really interested in, Kevin? I want to know the guy who allowed this satanic torture to happen. He is likely to get a lesser sentence. Now, what I'm looking for, and if it doesn't happen, I am going to...
I just want to... Look, they are going to get their just desserts under the justice. I want the officials and the hospital workers, the social workers who enabled this kid to be sexually abused to death. I want them investigated and prosecuted, and I think you agree. Marilyn, fantastic to talk to you as always. I've got to go. Marilyn Hawes, Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse. What do you think about that? A TV producer telling a rape gang victim not to mention the race of the men who raped her, tortured, drugged and raped her. To hell with that producer. No response from GMB, Good Morning Britain or ITV about that. You should tell us why you did that. You've apologised to Sammy Woodhouse. Why don't you apologise to the nation about what goes on in the background of your show, off camera? 03444991000. Next up, Mike Neville, former Met Police detective, joins me to discuss the strange case of the Sikh killer Vikram Digwa's brother. That next. Stay tuned.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Mike Neville, former Met Police detective, is in the studio. Now, Vikram Digwa, the Sikh killer, the man who stabbed Henry Novak to death, the victim of anti-white police racism, no doubtless. Vikram Digwa, he's got life sentence, 21 years. His brother and his dad are both being charged with a number of weapon offences, possession of illegal weapons, dangerous weapons, and Vikram Digwa's mother, I believe, is in custody, awaiting charge for helping to hide the murder weapon. So quite a litany of offences, but this is extraordinary, Mike. It turns out that his brother has not been and will not be charged with assisting a murderer, accomplice to murder, which, if you see some of the video, you know, he was involved in talking to the police, endorsing his brother's lies. Now, not so long ago, the law would have made him a murderer too. If you were with a murderer, if you were helping a murderer, you used to get charged with murder. But at the very least, he's an accomplice to murder, and yet he's not going to be charged with that.
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? And there's lawyers indicated that, you know, when you look at a crime like this, you get people who help before the crime, you get people who help during, and then afterwards. So his mother's been charged with assisting an offender, getting rid of a knife, that's afterwards. The brother Gurpeep, he's assisted during the crime, hasn't he? He's told lies to the police, he's done the 999 call, and then he's carried on with those lies, which has resulted in what we've seen. And there you can be charged with aiding and abetting. When you're charged with aiding and abetting, you're actually charged with the full offence of murder. So not only
exactly.
He could be charged.
Because you get these kids in gangs.
Yeah, that's right. Joint enterprise.
Well, yeah, joint enterprise. That's it. Now, listen. Let's just quickly analyse what Gurpreet Digwa said. Now, he watched as the police handcuffed fatally injured Henry, and he told the police, we've seen this on film, we've been racially attacked by a white person. So it was him that caused the police to wrongly arrest Henry Novak. He went on to say, we are restraining him now because he has attacked my brother and taken his turban off, and he was recording some SHIT on his phone. So it turns out, and this is extraordinary, two-tier policing, folks. Here's an egregious example for you. Hampshire police they did not ask the Crown Prosecution Service to consider any case whatsoever against Gurpreet over Henry's murder. He was right at the centre of it.
He was right at the centre of it. You could argue that those claims he made on the phone, those false claims of racism, resulted in Henry being treated very badly. And also you've got the other offence, of which catches a lot of things, is perverting the course of justice. He could be tried for that. That's another very serious crime, which has life imprisonment. It's a common law offence, but the usual sentence is something like 7 years imprisonment. So there's loads of options that could be gone for here, and the police have failed really, because, as you say, what people will look at here is if it was the other way around, it was an Asian victim, a white suspect, white victim, then it would have been the white suspect who would have been different. Again, I go back to the 1920s statement, justice has not just got to be done, it's got to be seen to be done. And what people are seeing here is it's not been seen to be done. And
the police, by the way, sorry to interrupt, but the cops are saying, oh, well, we've charged him with all these possession of offensive weapons charges.
Rubbish.
Well, you know, those charges will get him a fine and some sort of... They will not get him behind bars. No. He is... In my view, you look at this, he was right at the centre of it, right at the centre of trying to help his evil brother evade the law and deceive the police. That's got to be an offence.
It has, and you can also see as well that with the charges, you can see other police failings as well here, because one of the charges relates to having a high-powered air rifle, which isn't illegal. The neighbour had actually reported these two, and the police never went round there. So you could say that if the police had bothered the first time round and gripped them about these weapons, this whole wicked incident may not have occurred. And it's just there's so many failings here, and we know about Hampshire Police trying to put out a statement, trying to bluff it out that Henry was the aggressor and all that.
Alexis Boone, I think is the name of the chief. He said, I don't recognise this term two-tier policing. This is who was right at the centre of this. Now, I think we should say here that the Sikh community are exemplary. You know, they are never in trouble. But this family, the Digwars, are a bunch of scumbags. And we should be throwing the book at them. The police should not be giving this awful brother of this awful man, Vikram Digwar, special concessions by not charging him. Outrageous.
It is outrageous. And he's going to walk away, as you say, at court. It's very, very unlikely.
He's not going to go down for those weapon offences.
Nothing at all.
Well, he should. Now, let's move on. Jack Straw, former Home Secretary today, and we're talking about the awful case of baby Preston Davey, the 13-month-old kid adopted by gay male parents who proceeded to sexually abuse him to death. It's just an extraordinary case. Jack Straw is leading demands, and I would support his demands for a full police investigation into every hospital worker, every social worker, every public official involved in this case, because this kid was taken to hospital regularly with bruising before he finally died. There were other signs that the social workers ignored. There were sign after sign after sign ignored by social workers, ignored by hospital workers, and I think we know why, don't we? They were worried about being accused of homophobia.
Absolutely, and we've seen it with racism, with Victoria Columbier, we've seen it with Callaghan being released, we've seen it with the poor tragic death of Henry Nowak. These allegations, if you go against, so if you challenge somebody who's not straight and white, then people are panicking about losing their jobs, and this has got to the bottom of, because the wickedness that was inflicted on this young baby is beyond belief. I mean, I've got to say that the two of them should hang, and I'm sure they'll have a warm reception in jail, I have to say.
I mean, I was talking to Chris Phillips, former anti-terrorist cop, good guy.
Was my sergeant when I was in PC.
Well, he's a great guy. I love Chris. And, you know, we were both sort of comparing notes. I mean, people like us, we've seen, in our jobs, we've seen a few terrible things. I've seen some shocking things, encountered stuff that I wish I never did. This might be the worst thing I ever heard. A gay couple, somehow or other, working their way through the normally very strict adoption service system, being given custody of this poor little kid and using him as a sex object until he died. I mean, people in the adoption service need to be looked at as well. You know, what will happen, no doubt, like it always does, there'll be some kind of meagre inquiry. No one will be prosecuted.
Lessons learned.
And they'll announce lessons have been learned. They never are. This time, let's prosecute some people.
Let's prosecute people. Let's see. Let's hold people to account. So just like the Axel Rudicabana, where the head teacher was told, oh, you can't say you're stereotyping, he's a young black man with a knife. All these, the people who let Callaghan out in Nottingham to kill 3 people and injure others, they need to be held to account. We almost need them to be put in the stocks so we can see them. Who are these individuals who've made these crass, stupid and wicked decisions. And often these are made, I saw it in the police, they're made because these people want to get promoted and they do not want anything which interferes with their promotion prospects.
And it's going to carry on. I mean, obviously, the rape gang scandal, the cops are right up to hearing it. They were all turning a blind eye because they didn't want to be accused of racism, Islamophobia against these gangs who were mainly migrant Muslim men of Pakistani origin. So this is the scourge of the nation, that people in official positions of responsibility turning a blind eye to horrendous offences by people of colour and gay people because they don't want to be accused of being prejudiced. Real problem.
And it is a real problem as well. Let's say, if you're a decent gay person, decent black person, Asian person,
and you must
be utterly appalled by this, that you're being judged by a lower standard. It's absolutely disgraceful.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Mike Neville, fantastic to have him on the show. Isabel Oakeshott next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. We're going to talk about the BBC in a little while. Carnage, Armageddon at the state broadcaster. The new Director General, Matt Britton, former Google man, wants to save £80 million by getting rid of 2,000 staff and slashing a load of programmes. Which programmes would you like the BBC to get rid of? I mean, the BBC getting rid of a lot of its programmes. I don't know if that's bad news or if it's great news. I could give you a list. However, to be serious, they're slashing programmes, they're slashing 2,000 staff, they're even talking about slashing an entire channel. So major dramas at the BBC. We'll talk about that in just a little while. But first off, let's go over to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Now, Isabel, I do apologise. You sent me a couple of videos. You can talk them me through them in just a second, because I know they'll be newsworthy. But I've been up to my neck filming Plank of the Week and all that. But before we get to that, there's by the way, you sent me a very intriguing looking banner across some embassy-looking building. So we'll talk about that in just a second. The Andrea Egan, very powerful union chief. She's the General Secretary of Unison, massive union. She has today demanded that the next Labour leader, possibly Burnham, possibly not, must abandon the Labour Party's crackdown on migration. She described reforms to the asylum system, or proposed reforms brought forward by Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, as a, quotes, betrayal of our most basic values. This is the union, major funder of the Labour Party, telling the next leader of the Labour Party, you better abandon any form of crackdown on our migrant crisis. That doesn't bode well, does it?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that the idea that wanting to have a sensible asylum and immigration policy is a betrayal of our values is completely warped. And in fact, to persist with the policies that we've got is a betrayal of an awful lot of union members, because what it's doing is massively inflating the black market economy. That's what happens when you allow asylum seekers to come in and you make them wait for a year or more for decisions. Well, naturally, they need something to do, so they go and work in the black market. That depresses wages for people doing jobs properly. And if you've got uncontrolled mass immigration at lower level, lower skilled jobs, again, it depresses wages for people that are paid into the system. And it also, with all the pressures on housing and education and the NHS that we can all talk about ad nauseum. So I think this union boss needs to think about the needs of the union members and the lower paid people in this country before preaching about supposedly, quote, our values when it comes to the asylum and immigration system.
Yeah, good to see more than 700 coming across the channel 2 days ago, the record number this year. But, you know that if, this will mean I'll have to read out the list again, but if Andy Burnham wins the Makerfield by-election and proceeds to defenestrate Keir Starmer from number 10 Downing Street, he's going to go along with Angela Egan every day of the week. He will abandon the crackdown, and therefore our migrant crisis will get worse. He also will do nothing about defence spending. He will continue to allow the grotesque overspending by this country on welfare, £350 billion a year and rising. So the prospects are not great, are they? Our major problems, our major crises in this country will only get worse under whatever new leader we have, I suggest.
I think that's right. But, in politics, sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. And what's been remarkable about the way voters feel about this government is how rapidly it fell from grace. There was no real honeymoon period. Not Keir Starmer's fault that Southport happened within, weeks, 3 weeks or something of him coming into office. But
the way he handled it was his fault.
100% his fault. And you look back on the beginning of the new Labour administration, and it's just been downhill all the way, hasn't it? They've just never had.
It's just dreadful, yeah.
And so you think, well, what's that going to look like in 3 years' time? Well, I hope what that looks like is a mass movement for radical change, because we are going to be in a very, very, very bad state by then. I think the pace of decline is shocking. It is so shocking. And it's happened really in the space of a few years, that things have got so bad and so dangerous in so many regards. That said, Kev, the sun's shining and looking out onto the Thames.
And England will win the World Cup, all of that. Yeah, you're right about Keir Starmer. He started really, really badly. I mean, day one was a dreadful day because he abandoned the Rwanda scheme. He started dreadfully and it's been downhill all the way ever since. What are you making of this psychodrama in Westminster? Clearly now, John Healey, the now former Defence Secretary and former Defence Minister Al Carnes, they're on manoeuvres, clearly as a double act. You know, we can take over the country. I suspect if they did win, I think their chances will be slim, but if they did win, Al Carnes would probably be the Prime Minister and John Healey would be the power behind the throne, as it were. But so they're on manoeuvres. You know about West Streeting. Andy Burnham might be coming in. If he wins Makerfield, obviously he's going to go for Starmer almost immediately. West Streeting is still there. Angela Rayner, Uncle Tom Cobley and all. And we got a Prime Minister swanning around, preening himself at the G7, saying, well, I hope there isn't a challenge on my leadership. Yeah, well, there's going to be one. If there is, I'll stand. He's just in total denial. And his latest statement, what are your thoughts on this, is he wishes Andy Burnham all the best in the Makerfield by-election, and if Andy wins, he will offer him a place in his cabinet. He has now moved into an alternative universe where his sanity must be questioned.
I mean, Andy Burnham is not... I was talking about this with JK this morning, I think. Andy Burnham has not given up the job as Mayor of Manchester to come and be, you know, head of the Department of Communities and Housing. You just get real here. The only reason Andy Burnham has taken this massive risk, and it is a huge political risk, because he can't be guaranteed to win in this seat tomorrow. None of us can be sure the outcome. And so he's taken a huge political gamble. Imagine if he loses. In that case, he's potentially just kind of blown up his entire political career forevermore. Yeah. So he's not going to have taken that risk just to come down and be part of Keir Starmer's cabinet. Come on.
Exactly right. I tell you what, Isabel, if he loses that election, you know, when they read out the results on Thursday night, and I just can't wait to see his face if he does lose, you know, and the theme music to watch his face when he does it, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's a very tight by-election. You've mentioned it already, so of course we have to run through everything.
Don't worry about that. I'm used to this.
So we might as well.
I don't even need this list anymore. I've got it up here. But anyway, let's talk about it just for a second, because the word now increasingly is that it might be a lot closer than Andy Burnham would like, that the people of Makerfield, the potential Restore Britain supporters, might be prepared to strategically, tactically vote, if you like, for reform in order to thwart Burnham's plans to become Prime Minister. So I think it might be closer than people expect.
So I don't know about that. I think that there will be an awful... Whatever happens, all the parties involved are going to have a big post-mortem, whatever happens, apart from obviously Labour if they win. I think it'll be fascinating to see how well Restore does, because are they going to hold the difference between a potential reform win and a loss, or maybe not? You know, maybe their vote will diminish to the point that actually they didn't make the difference either way. If they do really well, of course, that is going to be a source of a great deal of reflection on all those involved in the campaign, because that would suggest that there is an increasingly important new force in politics. I don't believe that at all. I think it is a very noisy fringe party. I find them very unpleasant to encounter. I'm sure the vast majority of people that support them are decent. Unfortunately, many of those at the top have slightly different standards. But you know, if they do well tomorrow, then that changes once again our ever shape-shifting political landscape.
It certainly does. You've been on Question Time, haven't you?
Do you know, Kev, since moving abroad, I've probably lost my place in the rankings, but for a long time I was the most prolific right-wing commentator.
You were the go-to fascist for the BBC.
I've basically done it about 15 times, and that's not even a made-up figure.
Well, so you'll know about suspicions that the audience is stacked in favour of the BBC's political slant, the left. In fact, the BBC, old Fiona Bruce, the rather pompous host, every week, we go to the ends of the earth to make sure we've got a balanced audience. Even if the BBC does do that, the word is that behind the scenes, unbeknownst to them, in fact, I know this for a fact, Labour do stack that audience covertly, and probably the other parties are at work as well. Anyway, you remember this Question Time episode a couple of months ago, where suddenly there were these two migrants talking about the horror of the plight of poor asylum seekers and why doesn't this country let more in and so on and so forth. And both of them turned out to be former illegal immigrants, people who broke into this country illegally on small boats, but subsequently were granted asylum. The BBC didn't tell us about that, didn't tell us about this. Anyway, it's now been confirmed that that show, those migrants were specifically strategically placed. And a charity called IMIX, which is devoted to the fact that people who migrate or seek safety in the UK should be welcomed and valued within our communities. That's IMIX. They're confirming that BBC Question Time, the immigration special, the programme, approached them and local charities working in the asylum seeker sector to help include people with lived experience of seeking asylum in the audience. Now, in a sense, that's kind of okay, but it isn't okay if the BBC aren't telling us this. They're acting like, oh, we just happened to have... Oh, look, oh, really? You're an asylum seeker? Oh, we didn't know that. Well, they did know it. So they're stacking the damn audience.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got extensive experience of this. I mean, there's the radio equivalent of Question Time is called Any Questions. And in that one, they don't balance the audience. And that, to my cost, I've discovered that what happens is, particularly parties on the hard left, including the Greens, will flood an auditorium with their supporters and thereby turn the whole thing into a kind of bear-baiting exercise against anyone who's there to represent either the Conservatives or Reform. It's brutal, but I've long realised that actually the audience doesn't really, the live audience doesn't matter. Your audience is the people watching at home who know whether you're speaking common sense or not. And as for the immigration special, I agree with you. It was actually kind of a cool idea in a way to have some former asylum seekers.
But tell us.
Yeah, just
tell
be
the
open
audience.
about it. Just say, you know, we want this programme to have a whole rich range of views, and as part of that, we've got these two individuals. I mean, you know, it'd be nice if they'd also got a couple of people that would give radically the opposite perspective. Maybe some people that have missed out on housing because others have been prioritised. You know, I don't know what they did in terms of balancing that, but just be open about it.
A couple more questions, Isabel, to try and squeeze these in. First of all, your reaction. So we've seen these plucky pensioners, this couple who were on this sailing boat that got fired at, or at least warning shots fired across its bow by a Russian warship off the coast of the Isle of Wight, international waters to be fair. They say, well, first of all, the Ministry of Defence tried to shut their story down. Don't say a word. And they were having none of that. They told their story. Secondly, the Ministry of Defence tried to lie by saying that their sailing boat drifted close to the warship inadvertently in heavy fog. There was no fog. So they tried to lie. The Prime Minister saying, oh, it's just a misunderstanding, a skirmish. No big deal. A Russian warship shooting in the English Channel off the coast of the Isle of Wight. I say that is a big deal. But here's what I want your response to. In my view, the scandal of the fact that our new Defence Secretary, our Secretary of Defence, Dan Jarvis, has not said a dicky bird about this, not a single word. That's an abrogation of his duty, isn't it?
It's very, very strange. Very, very strange. Can you imagine if, you know, a British naval vessel did something similar in some other countries' sort of territorial waters. I mean, it's just unfathomable that you would not have some kind of pretty robust response. And the important point here is that what the Russians are doing is testing us. They are testing to see how do we respond with these provocations. And the provocations will continue to escalate until they get a reaction. And the only way to stop that happening is to smash it right down, robustly, unequivocally, when it happens. Otherwise, we're going to be exposed time and time again.
Indeed. Now, a last question. I'll fill you in the details. Now, Sammy Woodhouse is a redoubtable rape gang victim survivor. She campaigns for the rights of victims of that terrible scandal. She was on my show on Monday, and she went on to GMB, Good Morning Britain, yesterday, ITV's breakfast programme, hosted by Susanna Reid and Labour stooge Ed Balls. And before she went on, she talked about her plight, what happened to her, the fact that victims, 250,000 victims of that scourge, that scandal, are still not being given justice by this nation. Many of them still got criminal convictions that they didn't deserve to have. So she was talking about that. But so before she went on, a producer, ITV producer of that show, news programme, GMB, took her aside and said, "You must not mention the race of the men who raped you."
Wow.
What do you make of that?
Oh, wow. I mean, this stuff is just extraordinary. That's the whole point, isn't it?
Yes.
It's the whole point. You might as well say, I'm the weatherman today, but hey, don't talk about sunshine or rain. You know, I mean, that is at the heart of the whole issue, is the ethnic problem. And the fact that people took that attitude, oh, let's not acknowledge.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I say, Isabel, that to be fair to Sammy, I mean, you don't mess around with Sammy. She went on the show and did it anyway, and said, "I don't know why your producer asked me not to say this." She has since received an apology from the programme. We've approached Good Morning Britain and said, "What on earth are you playing at?" No response, came the reply. And this is two-tier broadcasting, isn't it?
Yeah, there's so much of this around. There is so much of it around, you know, these things that we're not supposed to talk about. But look, that's why talk exists, isn't it? Because we don't cower in the face of difficult truths. That's why we're here, that we have to bravely talk about things that often leads to a barrage of people being a little bit offended or, you know, annoyed that we're having these conversations. But when it comes to grooming gangs, it's not resolved, it's not over. There are an awful lot of people who deserve an awful lot more justice. And let's not pretend that things that happened didn't happen.
Exactly right. Just before you go, one last point. While your partner, future husband, Richard Tice, preens himself about being voted the sexiest man in Parliament, can you just tell him from me, it was against very weak opposition, to say the least.
Don't you worry. I said there was slim competition.
Yeah,
here.
exactly right. Exactly right. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. Right, we're going to go... Oh, I must do the candidates, mustn't I? Here we go, because we mentioned the Makerfield by-election. I'm sure you can all recite these now off the top of your head. I almost can, but here we go. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party. Andy Burnham, the Labour Party. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party. John Dyer, Independent. Ed Gemmell, Climate Party. Paul Gold, Independent. Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin EU. Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. And on that bombshell, let's go to break. We're going to talk about the BBC next. Say exactly where you are.
violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that. And if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, it's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to... Oh, by the way, I got a funny text here from Cliff in Berkshire. He says, in terms of the chant we were talking about, Keir Starmer's a tosser. You know what it is, don't you? Cliff says, to be honest, I've heard that chant so many times whenever Keir Starmer goes anywhere. I thought that we had changed our national anthem. That would be a good national anthem until he goes, wouldn't it? Anyway, England fans banned from chanting that in Dallas tonight. I got a feeling they won't be paying much attention to that ban. What do you reckon? I've got to say, I should not encourage breaking the rules and the laws, but I hope they don't pay any attention to it. To hell with FIFA and that ludicrous red tape. The idea of fans going, oh, yeah, I'm just going to take a picture of this banner and then I'll send it to FIFA and I'll apply to see if I can take it to the match. What planet are they on? Come on. Right, let's go over to my next guest. We're going to talk about the BBC in a minute, but first I want to go back to that issue I was discussing with Isabel Oakeshott just now, the fact that the leader of the Unison Union, Angela Egan, has called for whoever becomes our next Prime Minister, and it's not going to be Keir Starmer, is it, to abandon Labour's crackdown on the migrant situation, to the migrant crisis. You know, Shabana Mahmood has got all these proposals which may or may not have some impact. But at least she's trying, at least she's going in the right direction. Angela Egan is saying, you better abandon that, whoever takes over from Starmer. Let's talk to political commentator, former independent mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Herein lies our exact political problem in this country, Andy, doesn't it? We have all these left-wing ideologues, perfectly entitled to their worldview. I don't agree with them, but, you know, it's a free country. But they put their ideology above the harsh realities of governing a country. Now, you know, Angela Egan said, oh, you've got to abandon any suggestion of a crackdown on migrants. We have to crack down on migrants. We've got an escalating crisis. You know, this is not who we are. We've got to let them all in, open borders. This is what these left-wing Labour backbenchers make the Prime Minister do. You know, we are being propelled increasingly in this far left direction, which makes governing this country sensibly impossible.
Kevin, I reckon 75% of the public agree with you completely. And you know what? The Labour Party, they'd finally twigged that that's the way the world is, and the whole of Europe is moving that way, toughening up on asylum issues, making it harder to come into the country, but then also to stay unless you're actually contributing a lot. Now, the public agrees with that. Labour's deeply uncomfortable, but as a party, they move towards what's happening across Europe, getting tough. But a lot of people didn't like it. I tell you who didn't like it. Angela Rayner didn't like it. Ooh. Now we've had Labour's biggest bankroller, Unison, the union, putting in millions and millions and millions. And the boss of the union has called it denying Labour's most important values. But I tell you something about Ms. Egan. She was kicked out of the Labour Party. She made fun of them through her union. She was kicked out of the party in 2022 for sharing Marxist material. So she's somewhat persona non grata. But
why am I not surprised?
Yeah, she's trying to make sure, Kevin, that the new Labour PM, or the Labour PM in a few weeks, whoever that may be, is on side. Now, when Angela Rayner backed this kind of sentiment, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, agreed with her. So what we're seeing is a big chasm going to emerge now, and Andy Burnham's going to be under a lot of scrutiny on this.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of having to read this bloody list of candidates one more time, which I will now have to do, that'll be a hat trick for this show and rising. If Andy Burnham wins Makerfield and, as predicted, storms into number 10, defenestrates Keir Starmer, he'll be even more left-wing, and he will not only go along with what Angela Egan suggests or demands, he will agree with her. So I think we have an increasing problem here.
Well, will he, Kevin? That's the question, isn't it? He certainly talked a tough game, like Keir Starmer, when he's trying to become leader, talking a really tough game. And once they're in power, they chicken out. They get the support of the left-wing membership, the left-wing unions, and once they're in power. So I would predict that if he becomes leader, Burnham will chicken out. But that doesn't solve the problem. The problem is the rift between what Labour's core values are and what 75% of the British public want, which is tougher rules on immigration and asylum settlement. So whoever's leader in 3-4 weeks has got a heap of trouble to deal with here.
Since I've already ruined it for myself and we'll have to read the list again, I might as well ask you about the by-election. We're hearing, polls are revealing that it might be a little closer than Andy Burnham might like, that the wind of change is blowing in the wrong direction for him. His popularity rating, apparently in the last month, has dropped 15 points now to -7%. So a lot of negative publicity, a lot of negative media about Andy Burnham. He didn't do himself any favours in that BBC interview when he clearly did not know what Chancellor Rachel Reev's fiscal rules were. So the word is, it's not quite going to be the cakewalk that some were predicting for Labour and for Burnham in Makerfield.
Well, do you know what, Kevin? I think Labour are very, very likely home and dry with this. You can get surprises, but I tell you what, I'm not surprised that Burnham's popularity is declining because he's now facing proper scrutiny.
He's a hollow man. He's a hollow man. There's not much to him.
He's handing out money willy-nilly. His job is to hand over huge checks, and that's why he's popular. As soon as you've got to explain why or how he's changed his mind on gender issues, on trans issues, on immigration, suddenly he's exposed as the run-of-the-mill politician that he really is. So I think Labour will win it. I didn't think they should have won it. I thought Reform would be stronger. I'd be surprised if they don't win it, but he will be under a mountain of scrutiny now, and his world is going to change.
It certainly is. As I say, he's a hollow man, a straw man. There doesn't seem to be much to him politically. And frankly, in terms of details, he's been found seriously wanting. And I think that the 77,000 voters or so in Makerfield are beginning to realise that. You never know. If he loses on Thursday, it'll be the greatest political moment of comedy in history. It'll be hilarious. I just want to see his face if he loses. I agree with you. I think he might just nick it, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Listen, Andy, great to have you on the show as always. Come back and see us soon. That's Andy Preston, their former Mayor of Middlesbrough, now, of course, a political commentator. You know what I've got to do now. Here we go. Listen, tomorrow we're not really allowed to talk about the by-election at all, so we'll have to act like it's not happening. We'll talk about national politics, but not local politics. But it will mean that after tomorrow we could talk about the Makerfield by-election without having to do this. But for the time being, broadcasting rules mean I do have to do this. Here we go. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gold, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the Official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownell, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Right, we're going to go to break now. We're going to talk about the BBC, carnage at the BBC, the new Director General, Matt Britton, straight off the bus from Google, has announced massive cuts to programmes. Programmes will be axed. Even an entire channel may be axed. And 2,000 staff are going to get their cards, their marching orders. They've never seen anything like this at the BBC. A man from the real world has touched down. And they don't like it. We'll talk about all of that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Carnage at the BBC. The new Director General has stunned staff. I think there's something like 20,000, 22,000 people work at the state broadcaster across the country and across the world. 2,000 of them are going to get their marching orders. Many of them from the news department. The news departments are going to take a real hit in this restructuring. Lots of programmes are going to get axed, and there's even talk of an entire channel getting axed, you know, one of those channels that no one watches, BBC 3 or BBC 4. Might as well get rid of the news channel while you're at it. It's all biased anyway. But I don't like to see journalists, fellow journalists, losing their jobs, even if they work for the BBC. But I do think this is probably the cold wind of reality hitting the state broadcaster, which is cosseted by £3.5 billion every year from TV licence fee money. But it spends that money unwisely, you know, on very highly paid executives who don't do very much. You know, Director of Future, what's that mean? You know, that kind of stuff. Future thinking and all, 300 grand a year. Oh, yeah, OK, then. So all of that, they don't spend the money very wisely. And I think Matt Britton from Google, he knows how to spend money wisely, and he's looked around him and said, this place is a basket case. Let's talk to former BBC presenter. He was on That's Life, if I remember rightly. Adrian Mills. Hi, Adrian.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, you know, I don't celebrate this. I don't like, you know, in the end, we're all journalists, we're all working in the media, and I don't like to see 2,000 people losing their jobs, and never. Sure. I don't care where they work. But I do think, if we look at some of these are some of the cuts that they're talking about. I think you can pretty much take them as read, but I should stress they are not officially confirmed. But this is what he's talking about, Adrian. On BBC One, Sunday morning BBC Breakfast will stop from September. And the BBC News channel will be simulcast instead. Radio 4, The World Tonight, Midnight News and Moneybox Live. Antisocial, The Law Show and Crossing Continents. They will all be axed. That's all on Radio 4. Also on Radio 4, weeknight audiences from 10 p.m. We'll hear a domestic bulletin followed by the World Service. Because that used to be PM, didn't it? They used to call that, or was it 10? Anyway, the 10 o'clock BBC Radio 4 show will go. BBC World Service, The Inquiry, The Conversation, The Fifth Floor is to close by the end of the year. Weekend Breakfast will be shortened on 5 Live. Sunday with Laura Kunsberg and Newsnight will now share production teams. That'll be a bum fight, I'll tell you. And Radio 4, their flagship news show Today. The Today programme will have a roster of 4 permanent presenters rather than 5, and move to a single anchor format on Saturdays. That's from September. And some TV production at weekends potentially to be shared across the news channel and BBC One bulletins. And they're also talking about, actually, before too long, Adrian, actually naming shows that are for the chop television shows, and maybe even an entire channel. As I said, don't celebrate this, but I suspect this is the BBC colliding with the real world in the shape of a man who comes from the real world, Matt Britton. They finally, after their entire history, they've realised that maybe taking an internal lifelong BBC man and making them Director General is not a great idea. Yeah. Because then you get the status quo. So this guy's come in and all hell's broken loose. Your thoughts?
Well, we all know, and you know I don't always agree with you about issues with the BBC, because I think they're an invaluable source of information. But
yeah, well, they can pay for themselves, though, can't they?
Oh, no, don't let's not go that path.
Go on, sorry, we digress.
It is a bloated beast, without question. And I think you are absolutely spot on. I think the shock has been, for the people that are working there, to have somebody come in, which they derided for a while, so saying, who is this bloke? He's come in, he's got no television experience. Well, maybe that's exactly what was needed, to stand back and look at it from a business model point of view and to say, I really don't think this works. There are so many programmes on the BBC. I mean, the BBC are constantly chasing. They say they're not, but they love getting the viewing figures. So when they get 4 or 5 million, they get very excited. I was lucky to work in a period of time where we used to get 20 million. You know, we should have been on an absolute fortune for producing figures like that. But you weren't. No, I certainly wasn't. I always remember that when I travelled back from Manchester each week, I remember my head of production, she said, oh, yes, you need your expenses. They haven't come through yet, but here are the cornflake packet tops. And I said, what the hell is this for? She said, well, if you cash them in at the railway station at Piccadilly, that will get you a return trip to London.
Hey, Adrian, mate, that's life.
Oh, my friend, how long have we waited for that? But well, the problem is with the BBC is, as I say, they're chasing viewers. They say they're not. I worked on daytime where the audience was 1 million people. I worked on it for 2 years. The audience was 1 million people. And you sometimes have to think, well, actually, you could be putting out repeats of anything. And what I always find quite extraordinary is programmes like Homes Under the Hammer that have been going for like nearly 25 years or whatever it is. Yes, it's another building. It's gone into auction. We're going to paint it magnolia. And it gets half an hour's television every single day of the week, until somebody explained to me that part of the BBC charter is they have to show that 25% of production is independent.
Yeah,
and of course, Hammer. And if that's on every morning, it's a bit like, and that goes way back to the days of, say, Kilroy, when he used to do a breakfast show. That was an independent programme. Question Time, which I heard you talking about earlier on, that is an independent production company in conjunction with the BBC. And sometimes I think the BBC need to just step back and think, well, hang on a minute, we could be doing a lot better rather than just sort of sitting back and allowing this stuff to just roll out year after year after year.
Absolutely. And, I mean, I think this is a recognition by Matt Britton, and I'm sure the sensible minds at the BBC understand this as well. I mean, the television industry is at the crossroads. It is changing beyond all recognition. The BBC now, you know, trying to get involved in the YouTube syndrome. You know, over in America, you know, there are ructions, there are earthquakes going through their television industry because everybody's watching YouTube now. Kids.
That's really interesting you should say that, because once I knew I was coming on to talk to you today, I was out at lunchtime, a few friends, just chatting away. I mentioned I was coming onto the programme, and I asked, how do you watch television? 4 of the 6 people I were with only watch YouTube, exactly as you say. And I know my daughter wouldn't dream of putting on the TV and sitting down and watching a programme. Yes, there are moments, say, for example, Strictly Come Dancing. It's a family show, brings everybody together. That's great. But they are few and far between. And ironically, when you're trying to save money, what have they done? They've now got 3 presenters, not 2. So you could have trimmed there, if you ask me.
I'll tell you, digressing just for a second. My friend Andrew Castle has for 23 years been the face of Wimbledon. He's been the main host. Well, he's got his marching orders. He's got the boot. He's down at Queen's at the moment doing his final Queen's, and they've asked him to be a part of the Wimbledon team, and he's told them to sling their hook. So I was going to. He's 62 years old. I would suggest that they say we're going to go in a new direction. They've told him. I think the suggestion is that he's too male, pale, and stale. The one thing against that, though, is guess who's taking over? It's a very strange thing to do. It's Andrew Cotter. So they're sort of replacing one middle-aged white man with another middle-aged white man. I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, I know Andrew as well, and if you think about it, you know, he came in for a bit of stick a few years ago that people didn't like his commentary, or he made a few comments about something. So I think his card was marked. But it's the old classic BBC. If they're not handling it very well, it's the case of we'd really like you to sort of say that you're leaving of your own accord.
Yeah.
When really you're getting the elbow. They did this to Sue Barker with Question of Sport, and
ruined the show in the process.
Oh. Totally, and of course it's, you know, totally killed it on its head. And of course it's, you know, new production team, new head of sport, new head of department. Oh, we're going to do this. It's a bit like Football Focus. That's going by the by because people have come in and tinkered with something that wasn't broken, and that's what they don't understand.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Meanwhile, you know, the BBC should have a studio for the World Cup, shouldn't it? I mean,
honestly,
you know, people say, well, you know, it doesn't make any difference. We've got reporters out there, but all the HQ, the headquarters studios of the World Cup in America, Canada, and Mexico is in Salford, in that media city in Britain. Now, I would suggest to the sports editor, what's his name, Alex J. Kelsky, sounds like jet ski, doesn't it? He's made a big mistake here because they say, well, the viewers won't notice any difference, similar backgrounds, but, you know, there is something. ITV got this amazing studio with Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan skyline in the background. Gary Lineker's in Times Square, fabulous studio for Netflix. The BBC, £3.5 billion a year. They can't find it in themselves to spend the money to have a studio at the greatest sporting event in the world. Well, that's an abrogation. That's an abrogation of BBC duty.
They've shot themselves in the foot there, haven't they?
Yeah.
I can totally understand why they're going, whoa, that is a lot of money because we've got all the accommodation, all the travel, all the food, etc., etc. You know, the whole thing is going to cost a fortune. But as you so rightly say, it is the biggest sporting event in the world. The whole world is watching this, and the BBC have got some potted plants that they've nicked from daytime, pushed them into a corner with this awful CGI sort of floor and backdrop, and for the first time ever, I am now switching over to watch ITV's football coverage because it just looks more spectacular.
It certainly does. And the last question on that tack. If the BBC wants to save money on the World Cup, which it shouldn't be doing, I mean, usually we say, why are you all wasting all this money? Well, this would not have been wasted money. This would have been money wisely spent. If they want to save money, why do they send 1,000 staff to cover Glastonbury?
Oh, you know, that is really funny to say because I saw this written the other day and I thought, actually, where is the logic in this? Where is the bigger audience? Yes, we are a phenomenal country for producing music and listening to it, but we have the best football in the world. So therefore, I would have thought the World Cup trumped, so to speak, the actual Glastonbury Music Festival. But you cut down on one and you share with the other. It's a bit like Laura Kunsberg sharing a studio with Newsnight, isn't it? You're going to have to mix and match. But we are going to see, I think, in the next year or so, a very different BBC. And a lot of people will be offered redundancy packages. And when I met somebody the other day and they told me what they were getting paid, I was astounded. I'm afraid on occasions, and I defend the BBC on many occasions, but it is jobs for the boys.
It certainly is. I think that a wind of change is blowing through the state broadcaster, and they will finally maybe be dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Adrian, fantastic to have you on the show. Good stuff, mate. Thank you very much. Adrian Mills, former BBC presenter, who was on That's Life. Remember that with Esther Ranson? Now, before we go to break, we're going to talk about the World Cup with the Sun's sports correspondent Charlie Wyatt in just a little while. But before that, over at the G7, Donald Trump is stealing the show as usual. He's announced that he's in charge. It must go down very well with all the other world leaders there. But he said the US agreement, the American agreement with Iran, will be signed shortly. That's a quote, and could be done tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be signed in Switzerland on Friday. He also calls Israeli PM, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm quoting here, a good man. And then he goes on to say, but he gets a little excited sometimes. Sure, Mr. Netanyahu's thrilled about that. You don't have to knock down a building every time someone walks into it that's from Hezbollah, says Trump. I'm afraid I don't think the Israelis agree with that. That's your problem, Donald, isn't it? So G7, Donald Trump has the stage, stealing the limelight, putting all the other world leaders in their place, and going on about this peace deal with Iran, which most people think is one of the worst deals ever. It's absolutely hopeless. It's like, what have you been doing? I mean, I'm a big fan of Donald Trump. I'm a supporter. I'm a supporter of attacking Iran, putting Iran in its place, cutting back its military capabilities. But this isn't the outcome I was looking for. Was it you? 03444991000. Sport next. Stay tuned.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, literally like putting a wall in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, he's where it's at the moment. We are going to talk now to Chief Football Correspondent of the Sun newspaper, Charlie Wyatt, and he is in Dallas, ready for the big game tonight, England. Charlie, let me ask you that really crap question that broadcasters ask all the time. What's the atmosphere like in Dallas? It must be exciting.
Yes, Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, we're at the stadium now, which is actually 20 miles out of Dallas, in another city called Arlington. So all the fans are facing, I think, this colossal journey. It took a long time last night, but the atmosphere is good. There's plenty of England fans in Arlington. I think there's some England fans, or a lot of England fans, about 15,000 expected still in Dallas. So, yeah, it'll be a good atmosphere inside the stadium. There's a roof on. It's obviously the home of the Dallas Cowboys. But, yeah, with the roof on, because it's over 30 degrees outside, I'm sure it'll be a brilliant atmosphere.
So they're putting the roof on to air condition it, yeah?
Correct, yeah. It's the only game England are going to be playing with air conditioning in the group stages. If they win the group, they'll be off to Atlanta, which will also have a roof.
Okay.
It's much better for the players, obviously. And I think some of the fans are going to get a bit of a shock because they've all got the T-shirts on, and when the roof's on, it's actually quite cold.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, I think there'll be a few fans freezing.
I'll tell you, AC in Texas, I know from bitter experience here, the temperatures can be absolutely boiling in summer, but you go into the buildings and it's like walking into an igloo or something. It's really severe. So, yeah, capless T-shirts may not be in order tonight. Any team news we need to know about, Charlie?
Well, I think, it's as we expected, so there's not any huge shocks. So, yeah.
I think he might be back in a minute. I mean, there's a lot of people broadcasting out of that stadium, you can imagine. We'll try and get Charlie back, but let me know. You can get in touch if you like. Either leave a WhatsApp voice note or send us a text at 03444 991000. Right, 87222 at the beginning of your message plus talk. Have we got Charlie back, or is he still frozen? He's probably literally, I think he's literally frozen to death because it's so cold in the air-conditioned stadium. Hang on a second. I think he is back. I think he is. It's not strong enough. We're going to have to let Charlie go. But you know what? He's at the match. I asked him if there's any team news, but I think we pretty much know it. Thomas Tuchel says he's very confident. The mood in the camp is optimistic. So let's hope for the best. Roar the team on. Let me know who you think's going to win. What do you think's going to happen tonight? What kind of score there might be? Send us a voice note if you like, 03444 991000. And don't, whatever you do, call Keir Starmer a rhymes with banker tosser. The fans have been banned. England fans have been banned from chanting that now. That is one of the most ridiculous news items I've ever had to broadcast. And they won't obey it, will they? Right, let's take a quick call. Unfortunately, Charlie's just dropped off. There's a lot of people, you can imagine, in that stadium. A lot of broadcasters, and all the lines get very crammed up. Right, let's talk to Brian in Hertfordshire. Hello, Brian.
Hello there, yes. It was only just a quick note. Just noticed over the years how Google have been getting themselves positioned that they've pretty much wrapped up most news, most programs with YouTube, that you try and find news from other places and YouTube takes 90% of the actual results that you find.
Yeah.
Because obviously Google own YouTube and they're dominating. I just wondered if it's getting to a point where no one else can get back into the market because they just own the whole of it.
Because they're their business model is so expansive. YouTube has created a whole new economy, of people who go onto YouTube to try and generate numbers, and YouTube pays them. So there are people making very good livings, and there are companies making a lot of money out of YouTube. So it's created a new kind of media economy. But what I think we're witnessing, Brian, is the slow, painful death of terrestrial television.
Yeah, and also the fact that they used to not be able to do these and buy companies when they're dominating to such a point that no one has got a way in to compete against them anymore,
Yeah, but the thing is, what's weird about their business model is, you can sort of watch the BBC on YouTube. You can watch ITV programmes on YouTube. You can watch, well, a lot of people might be, hopefully, are watching me right now on YouTube. So it's a very expansive format, as I said. But, you know, it encompasses traditional television and more. But what it does spell, this is the crossroads, what it does spell, Brian, and I'm something of a... I'm quite well informed on the media industry, on television. This is the death. This is the beginning of the end for traditional television.
I mean, BBC should have gone a long time ago. You know, the fact that we have to pay a TV license doesn't make any sense anymore, and never has done.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to, I know it's just another tax, but if you want to make money, put adverts on there like everyone else does. I mean, even if you watch BBC on other formats, you get adverts.
Yeah, loads of people say. Yeah, I know. Loads of people say this, Brian. They say, "Oh, you know, axe the people, get rid of the BBC. The BBC shouldn't exist." Well, I don't agree with that. I think the BBC has every right to exist. I wish the BBC all the very best for a glittering future. I just don't want to pay for it. If they want me to pay for it, that should be my choice. A voluntary subscription like I pay to Netflix or Paramount TV or Amazon Prime. You know, so no more compulsory licence fee. That's what has to end. I have no problem with the BBC. I just have a problem with paying for it. Brian, good call. Thank you for ringing. Brian in Hertfordshire there. Now we're going to go to break, and after the news, going to be joined by former Conservative Defence Minister Sir Gerald Howarth. I'll go through some of the big stories of the day, so you better stick around for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, for the next 20-25 minutes or so, I'm going to spend them in the excellent company of the former Conservative Minister for International Security Strategy at the heart of our defence programme, Sir Gerald Howarth. Now, in the course of our chat, doubtless we will mention the Makerfield by-election, which means I will have to read that list again. These are the rules, folks. I don't make them up, just like I can't use that word that rhymes with banker about Keir Starmer, but I can say tosser. Welcome to our nightmare. Right, well, Donald Trump, we'll talk about that in just a second. He's over at the G7 saying that his peace deal with Iran will be signed shortly, I'm sure. That will crop up as I discuss some of the bigger stories of the day with Sir Gerald Howarth, as I say, former Conservative Minister for International Security Strategy. Welcome, Sir Gerald.
Well, good evening, Kevin. What a wonderful day.
It is a lovely day. What's your prediction of the score tonight? What do you reckon?
I don't know. We're playing rugby tonight? I can't oh, no, you mean, oh, yes, the other form of...
The World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Well, obviously, I do hope that England do well. I'm not a great football fan. I'm a rugby fan, but I do hope England do well. Actually, it was quite amusing because on the anniversary of the centenary of the famous football match during the lull in the hostilities of the First World War.
Yeah.
We had a kind of replay between the German armed forces and the British Army at the Aldershot Town Stadium, organised by Shahid Azim, the chairman of Aldershot Town Football Club. And actually, it was very interesting because Greg Dyke was there, and I was brought up in Germany, so I went down the line, shook hands with the German team, and as Greg did as well. And when I got to the England team, I just said 4-2, 4-2, 4-2. Understood.
Who won?
Well, of course, we won.
Excellent. Good to know.
But forgive my being in rather déshabillé attire, but our village of Chelsworth in
I know it well, as you well know.
Well, we've got our open gardens, Ken. We've got 26 gardens going to be open. We're expecting 1,000 visitors.
The gardens, yeah, and. I used to go...
It's only £7.50 a programme.
Yeah, they open the gardens of Chelsworth. Lovely village in Suffolk, folks. Get down there and you can go and see all the beautiful flowers and shrubbery there. Now, listen, let's get down to some serious news, Sir Gerald. Can I ask you... Now, we've seen this extraordinary incident two mornings ago in the English Channel, off the coast of the Isle of Wight, a Russian warship opening fire, putting warning shots across the bow of a pleasure sailing boat owned by two pensioners. The pensioners said that the MOD tried to tell them not to tell their story. They said sod that and told their story. They also said the MOD put out this information, said, well, what happened was the boat did get a bit dangerously close to the Russian vessel. Can't really blame the Russians here because it was thick fog. There was no fog. So the MOD are trying to diffuse this and say, oh, it's nothing much. Keir Starmer says, oh, come on, international waters, nothing to worry about. I say this is an extraordinary, shocking incident that just a few miles from Britain, admittedly in international waters, but they can see the Isle of Wight from where they were, a Russian warship opened fire in the English Channel. What I want to ask you, as a man, with experience of working in the Defence Department of politics, why have we not heard a single word on this shocking incident from the new Secretary of Defence, Dan Jarvis? Not a word. What's going on?
Well, you may well ask, and I was astonished that the Ministry of Defence played down this incident and gave the couple the advice that it is reported by them that they were given that somehow this is some kind of minor incident. This Grigorovich frigate has been lurking around the British waters here off the coast of Suffolk and in the Channel for months now, surveying our underground cables, presumably with an intention at some point of sabotaging those cables. And they have been able to do so, it would appear, with complete impunity. And then the Ministry of Defence said that this this Russian frigate, which has spent so much time in British waters, was drifting. What on earth was it doing drifting? And what was the Royal Navy? What on earth is the Royal Navy doing, letting it drift in this fashion? And of course, if the account of the owners of this yacht are to be believed, and I have no reason to disbelieve them any more than I think anybody else disbelieves them, they received no call on the radio, as the Minister of Defence claimed that the Russian ship had made. They saw no flares going up, as the Ministry of Defence claims. You know, whose side is the Ministry of Defence on, one's bound to ask. And certainly if I were a Defence Minister at the time, I would demand my officials to give me an explanation. And that's what the Secretary of State, Dan Jarvis, the new Secretary of State, should be doing immediately. But of course, what it says, Kevin, is that this is another example of Britain being humiliated, that a Russian frigate can sit 20 miles off the Isle of Wight and fire shots at a civilian British ship skippered by two British pensioners. For God's sake, what's going on? It's about time we retaliated. Keir Starmer only authorised the attack on the boarding by the Royal Marines of that shadow tanker the other day, because Donald Trump is fed up with the United Kingdom and the way we have run down our defences. And I hold my hand up because I was part of that. Perhaps I can explain later. Circumstances in 2010 were very different from what they are today. But he only authorised that was, I understand that many of these Russian shadow tankers have been passing through the Straits of Dover with complete impunity. And it was only last Sunday night that action was taken, because Sir Keir Starmer knew that he was going to be meeting Donald Trump this week and wanted to say, oh, you know, Britain has been baring its teeth.
Your thoughts, Sir Gerald, if you will, on the fact that we can say this is a fact, and I don't think those pensioners are liars, that the Ministry of Defence tried to concoct a story, first of all to suppress their story, and then concoct a pack of lies to exonerate Russia from opening fire in the English Channel. That's what's happened. So we're just trying to downplay this. That's our idea of defence of the realm now. This is shocking.
No, I think I can completely agree with you, Kevin. And we've had no explanation. Indeed, the only explanation we've had from the Ministry of Defence is some other side with the Russians and say, oh, was only a minor incident.
Yes.
So we mustn't overplay it. I mean, they must be just laughing all the way to the bank.
And they're going to taunt us. They will taunt us more and more and more, because they know we cannot defend this nation anymore. What an indictment of this terrible government.
It is an indictment, I'm afraid. You're absolutely right.
Now, you mentioned Donald Trump. He's over there at the G7. He's thrilled all of the other world leaders by telling them all that he's in charge. But he's announced that his peace deal, the American peace deal with Iran, will be signed, in his words, shortly. I thought it was supposed to be signed in Switzerland on Friday, but he says shortly. He also called Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a good man. Went on to say, but he gets a little excited sometimes. You don't have to knock down a building every time someone walks into it. That's from Hezbollah. Well, I'm afraid, Donald, that is not the Israelis' attitude. They do believe you should knock down a building every time anybody from Hezbollah walks in. Now, this peace deal, we don't know the full details of it, but I wouldn't call it a triumph for the United States. We're understanding that out of this deal, Iran, of course, will be able to keep its tyrannical, theological, theocrat regime, those awful, mad mullahs who suppress their people with violence and murder. So they can stay. They're going to get $300 billion. And as things stand, J.D. Vance, who's doing the negotiations, trying to say, well, it'll only be temporary. But as things stand, something that didn't happen before the war, before America launched this war, Iran will now be charging ships massive tolls to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't exactly a fantastic deal that our hero Donald has sealed, is it?
Certainly isn't, but I do want to correct you, Kevin. This is not a peace deal. This is a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Which has a 60-day time frame during which the so-called peace deal will itself be negotiated. And of course, central to that is this whole question of Iran's capacity to produce nuclear weapons. When I was at the Ministry of Defense, and this was 15 years ago, I had a classified briefing. So obviously I'm not going to tell you what the briefing contained, but it was about Iran, the end of which I said to the Chief of Defense Intelligence, well, if this is what's going on, what on earth are we signing any agreement with these people? And therefore I welcomed what President Trump was planning to do at the beginning of the year, which was to bring about regime change in Iran. And that was for good reason. They were clearly a threat to their local people, the way they are oppressing the ordinary people of Iran. They were a threat, and they remain a threat to the region because they are funding the terrorist groups Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and they are a threat to the rest of us because of their determination to create a nuclear weapon. And whatever President Trump says, there is no evidence that the regime in Tehran has any intention of giving up its intention to develop that nuclear weapon. I mean, you know, the president swings all over the shop. I mean, he just charges around like a bull in a china shop. I mean, it's the most extraordinary way of conducting international diplomacy that we've seen, I think, probably in my lifetime in politics, which spans about 30, 40 years. And I find it actually puerile. I also think that it is it's deeply damaging and it's humiliating, as you rightly say. I mean, before the United States launched its activity, traffic was traveling through the Straits of Hormuz, and now it may well have to pay to do what it was doing.
They're talking about maybe $2 million a ship. It's just ridiculous. Now, here's my.
Can I just, Kevin? Just let me
go for it. Go for it.
The Netanyahu business. You know, I'm a supporter of Israel. I've only met Netanyahu once. And he's clearly, quite a formidable character. But I cannot see when a nation like Israel has such a proliferation of precision-guided weapons. What is the justification for flattening Gaza? What is the justification for flattening large parts of Lebanon? It's precision weapons. When we took out buildings in Iraq, I was flying in a helicopter, Black Hawk helicopter over Baghdad. Saw a lovely classical building there. I realized actually there were damage to the porch. Actually, we'd stuck a storm shadow through the front of that building and just taken out one level of the building. Israel's got all this in abundance. So why are they doing what amounts to, as far as I can see, carpet bombing? And the reason, as a former general, a very senior general, said to me last night at the at Lord Ashcroft's launch of his biography of Nigel Farage, he says you have to understand that Benjamin Netanyahu has two bosses. One is Donald Trump, American Jewish lobby, and so on, and the other is Likud, the right-wing element in his own government. And the third element, of course, which I would add, which this general didn't add, but what I would add is that Netanyahu faces legal proceedings, and the longer he prolongs his his prime ministership, then clearly he won't be going to court. But
so Gerald, you know, those are your views. I respect them. I would suggest that Netanyahu's standpoint is, you know, we've tried this before, and maybe the only way to wipe out Hamas and Hezbollah is all-out bombing. You know, that obviously is his viewpoint. Now, what we do know is that Netanyahu and the Israelis are furious about Trump's deal, this, as you say, agreement to enter peace.
Memorandum of Understanding.
The Memorandum of Understanding, that's the term. They're furious about it. They think that, Trump is stacking his cards when nothing has been achieved.
Yeah, they did. Look, I understand Israel's position, and I preface my remarks by saying I'm a supporter of Israel. But let me come back to the word used, wipe out. It is not possible to wipe out an idea. It is not possible to wipe out Hamas, as much as I would like to wipe out Hamas and Hezbollah and the rest of them, because they're a threat to the whole region of the Middle East. And we have, of course, vital allies like Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the Gulf states. They are all close allies of the United Kingdom. We understand the threat, but you cannot wipe out an idea. And so it seems to me that the Israeli intention of wiping out Hezbollah, wiping out Hamas, and we should all, of course, pause and remember the atrocities committed by those people. But wiping them out is not a sustainable strategy.
That said, a very good point. That said, the Israelis feel that America has stacked its cards with nothing having been achieved, particularly on the nuclear front. It's an interesting situation. Can we move on? Well, let's talk about the Makerfield by-election and what's going on. We've got this Prime Minister, it's Keir Starmer, who's over there preening himself at the G7, which will probably be his final international jaunt. He'll have to pay for his own airfares from now on, won't he? He's had a lot at taxpayers' expense over his premiership. So he's over there. Now, back here, we know what's going on. There's the Makerfield by-election tomorrow. Andy Burnham hopes to win that. Makerfield, the constituents there being asked the extraordinary question, vote Labour to get rid of the Labour Prime Minister, which is basically it. Now, so Burnham, if he wins that, he comes into Westminster, sets his sights on Downing Street and probably get there pretty quickly. Meanwhile, though, there are other challenges. It's clear John Healey and Al Carnes, the erstwhile Defence Secretary, Defence Minister, are on manoeuvres. So they see themselves as a double act that could run the country. We know about West Streeting. Angela Rayner's still waiting in the wings, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. There are all these challenges to his leadership, and yet our Prime Minister seems to have entered a parallel universe where, today, I'll play you the clip in a minute, he said, good luck to Andy. I hope he wins that by-election, and as soon as he does, I'm going to offer him a senior position in my cabinet. Meanwhile, he says, we mustn't have a leadership battle. We can't afford that right now. But if there is one, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I mean, he's got to give up the ghost. His stubbornness about this, his predicament, which is inevitable, his fate is inevitable, his stubbornness about it is becoming, I think that it sort of indicates an almost psychological problem, but it's causing a real problem for the nation. Thanks to him and his squabbling rabble, we're not getting governed.
No, we're not, and you're absolutely right. And the word you used, paralysis, is why they just West Streeting used, and that is the position of the government and of the Labour Party. Everybody has tended to concentrate on the woes of the Conservative Party. Indeed, we do have our woes in the Conservative Party. And incidentally, I'm not joining Reform. I have great friends in Reform, but I'm not joining Reform. I am the party of Margaret Thatcher. I was privileged of Margaret Thatcher's parliamentary private secretary. I am not leaving, but everybody's concentrating on the woes of the Conservative Party. Actually, the Labour Party is in dire straits. They're paralysed and have been paralysed since before the last election for one clear reason. First, you have got on the left, you have got the Corbynistas and the left-wingers, and on the right, you've got the Blairites. And so, secondly, as a result of that, Keir Starmer, before the election, could not make many policy announcements for fear of upsetting one side or the other. And he had a huge lead in the opinion polls, ergo, he said nothing. And so he came into office with three undertakings. One was to put VAT on school fees. Second was to ban trail hunting and hit Middle England with his wretched class warfare nonsense, and the third was to build in the Shire counties and on our fields. Those were the only three policies made. So what is happening now is that there is going to be unleashed a major battle in the Labour Party to try to get some sort of coherence. But if you remember, Kevin, just the other day when the Mandelson files, the latest Mandelson files were released, what did Pat McFadden, really,
I
very
what
decent,
he said,
decent Labour guy. What did Pat McFadden said? He said, every time a group of Labour backbenchers come to see me, all they want to talk about is who can we tax to pay benefits to other people. So the idea that Labour can tackle the economic woes of the country, it's impossible because they are divided. Shed loads of Labour MPs will not see a cut in welfare at all. Of course, when Sir Keir Starmer tried to introduce a modest reduction in the increase to benefits, there was a revolt on the Labour benches. And they've made that clear that they will do it again. So whilst we are potentially going to be at war with Russia, as my good friend Lord Robertson, who conducted the review for Sir Keir Starmer, defence review for Sir Keir Starmer last year, whilst Lord Robertson tells me there's every possibility we could be at war with Russia in 2 years' time, and we cannot fund the defence of the realm that is required on an increasing welfare budget. Meanwhile, all these Labour backbenchers want yet more money poured into the welfare pot. This is appalling government of the country, and we're scheduled now for a real battle. And Sir Keir Starmer shows absolutely no sign.
Can I just play this to you, Sir Gerald? Have a look at this. And I mean, this is politics, but it also strikes me it's a kind of a man in denial. It's kind of weird. Watch this. This is Keir Starmer talking to Beth Rigby of Sky News at the G7 in France.
Would you bring Burnham back into your cabinet?
Oh, Andy's a great asset, and yes, I want him to have a big role in government.
Are you going to call him at the weekend and invite him back into your cabinet?
Well, I'm sure I'll talk to Andy after the weekend. Of course I will. I've spoken to him many times in recent weeks, and when I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined, and we worked very well together. He's a huge asset. He's been a fantastic mayor in Manchester, and if he comes back into Parliament, and I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
Is that the same Andy Burnham that he banned from standing in a by-election a couple of months back because he didn't want Andy Burnham to topple him out of number 10 Downing Street? What on earth is that man Starmer talking about? It's like he's in a parallel universe, isn't it?
No, he's just, Kevin, he is completely all over the shop. If we say that Donald Trump is a bull in a china shop, I mean, this guy is all over the place. I can't remember the number of U-turns he's
I think we're on 16 now. I mean, the social media ban for under 16s was another U-turn, because a couple of weeks ago he said he didn't think we needed a total ban. Now he's brought one in.
That's right. I voted against the Conservative proposal for that earlier in the year. Now he's saying it's the most vital thing for our children's future. I mean, it is just utterly, utterly inconsistent. There is no principle. There seems no principle guiding this government, no consistency. We're just drifting from one crisis to another.
That's exactly
and if you remember, of course, one of the reasons why Sir Keir Starmer said that it would not be appropriate to allow Andy Burnham to put himself forward at the Denton Gorton by-election was because it would create a vacancy for the mayor of Manchester. So what is happening now is, by allowing Andy Burnham to stand, I personally think he had no option. There's now going to be, if Andy Burnham wins tomorrow night, and I suspect he will, because of course Restore and Reform.
We'll see. It might be closer than they think, but I think you're probably right.
But then there will be a requirement for a new mayor of Manchester.
I know. Everything he said, he's gone back on. I'm really worried about this Prime Minister. He doesn't seem to be at the races anymore. So, Gerald, I've got to move on now, but it's great to have you on the show. Give my regards to all my friends in lovely Chelsworth.
Kevin, I will certainly do that, and the sun is shining here in Arcadia as I
fantastic place. Next time I'm up there, I'll buy you a drink. Look forward to that. That's for former Conservative Minister for International Security Strategy, Sir Gerald Howarth. We mentioned the Makerfield by-election, so you know what I've got to do. Third time this show. This will probably be the last time I ever have to do this. Thank God for that. Here we go. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the Official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Let's go to break.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Before we go to a phone call, 03444991000. We've taken some calls towards the end of the show. Still time to get onto our switchboard. So let me know what you think about all the issues we've been discussing. Particularly that shootout, the Russian shootout in the English Channel, the fact that our Defence Secretary Dan Jarvis hasn't said a word about it, and the Prime Minister says, no big deal. What, a Russian warship opening fire in the English Channel? I would say it is a big deal, wouldn't you? 03444991000. What do you think about that rape gang victim, Sammy Woodhouse, revealing that an ITV producer told her on air, or when she went on air with Ed Balls and Susanna Reid, the presenters of Good Morning Britain, that she mustn't mention the race of the men who drugged, tortured and raped her. Their race was of Pakistani heritage, Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. But can't mention that, you know, because it might seem like Islamophobic or racist. What do you think about that? 03444991000. And your thoughts on FIFA, the World Cup organisation's ban on England fans chanting Keir Starmer's a tosser, but the word that rhymes with banker. They're banned from singing that because that's political. I mean, it won't stop them. But what do you think of that kind of red tape nonsense? 03444991000. Right, let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Grace in London. Grace, you want to talk about that poor kid, Preston Davey. What a shocking case that is. How do you think, Grace, those two gay guys managed to successfully adopt that poor kid, that poor baby, because the adoption process is pretty rigorous. And these two guys clearly should never have been given custody of a child, because you know what we know what they did to him. They sexually abused him to death. What's going on? Were they ever allowed? They couldn't have been quizzed or interrogated enough, could they?
Well, clearly not, no. And it's so horrific. There really aren't words. And condolences to anyone who did know Preston before he passed away. It's just horrific. Yeah. I don't know enough about the details of the adoption process, but if it is the case that the adopters were given a pass to some extent because of their sexuality, it's really kind of emblematic of this problem we've got going on, whereby people are generalised or defined by identity characteristics rather than who they are as individuals. And I think that can work both ways. Obviously, it's wrong if people are bigoted, but it can obviously work in the other direction and become a real problem. I feel really politically homeless because, on the one hand, I really want wealth to be more fairly distributed, especially to the world's very poorest people. But on the other hand, I feel that the left has become too focused on spending time talking about identity politics rather than actual injustices and suffering.
Yeah, but do you know what about that, Grace? I mean, yeah, fairness, an equal division of resources among the people who live in a country, that's a reasonable proposition. But all this, the drive by the left-wing members of the Labour Party in particular, and of course other left-wingers, to bring about a kind of false equality. They've got this idea everybody's got to be equal. Well, that is not the human condition. And this drive to achieve this unnatural equality is pernicious, frankly.
The human condition, from a philosophical point of view, is that all human beings are flawed, whatever colour they are or whatever their sexuality is. There's a verse in the Bible that says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we obviously might sin very different ways and to very different magnitudes, because most people wouldn't dream of doing something like this. But a person isn't inherently good on the basis of being in a particular category, and trying to pretend that people are good in a particular racial or sexuality category is just the kind of the
Don't you feel, Grace? Yeah, don't you feel, Grace, that there's this syndrome that's out of control? We know why the rape gang scandal happened, why it was allowed to be enabled, really. It's because that coppers, social workers, teachers, local politicians, people in authority in many areas of the country, cities, towns, boroughs, were too frightened to point the finger at the people that they knew were sexually abusing, were drugging, torturing and sexually abusing, raping mainly vulnerable young white girls, many of them under age. They were too frightened to point the finger at the perpetrators, which were mostly Muslim men of Pakistani heritage, because they were scared they would be accused of Islamophobia and racism. And I think in the case of these two monsters who killed poor little baby Preston Davey, they probably got off lightly. They probably weren't over-interrogated. Certainly we know signs were missed. That kid was regularly taken to hospital. The authorities said, oh, that's all right, growing pains. They probably got an easy pass because they're gay, and the authorities were frightened of accusations of homophobia. This syndrome, what you might call white middle-class guilt syndrome, is the scourge of this country, isn't it?
It's certainly a problem. I mean, I think you can't actually resolve bigotry where it does genuinely exist, because we know that sometimes people actually are homophobic or racist, but you can't actually resolve that by pretending to be morally superior, by ignoring concerns about people in minority groups. We need to really keep in mind that all human beings are equal, and so there's a real need to treat people equally and to look into concerns where they exist.
Yeah. We should be colourblind. We should be sexuality blind. Everybody should be treating equally in that respect. But this kind of bid to make everybody financially and property equal is just ridiculous. That does go against the human condition. It really does. Grace, interesting discussion as always with you. I've got to move on though. Perhaps we'll continue it tomorrow. Give me a call then. Good to talk to you as always. Thank you for ringing. That was Grace in London. Now, we're going to go to break. Don't forget, get on the phone. Let me know what you think about these issues. What on earth is going on? Why did our government just shrug its shoulders when a German warship opened fire in the English Channel, firing warning shots across the bows of a sailing boat being sailed by 2 British pensioners? Why did the Ministry of Defence try to shut that story down? Why did they pretend that it was foggy? It wasn't. What's going on? 03444991000. What programmes at the BBC would you like them to axe? I mean, let's look on the bright side. All these cutbacks at the BBC, we can get rid of some of these crap programmes they're always putting out. 03444991000. Get on the phone. We're going to talk in just a little while. It's good to talk on Talk. In the meantime, we'll go to break, and when we come back, Meghan Markle is reported to be returning to Britain within weeks alongside that hapless husband of hers, her spare Prince Harry, you know, the ginger guy with not much hair left, and their kids, Archie and Lilibet, for an Invictus Games event. That's the Prince's games for wounded military veterans. It doesn't happen for a year, but he's got some sort of year previous, you know, a year to go event lined up. I don't know what that's all about, but you know what he's like. We'll talk about Meg's alleged return to Britain. I don't know if it will be a fact, but I'll believe it when I see it. With Kinsey Schofield, our royal guru, when we come back. So stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, let's go straight over to our royal guru. She is now live on the West Coast. She's been in Britain for quite a long time, but she's gone back to her fabulous home country, home of the World Cup. She's over on the West Coast. She is, of course, the great Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Welcome, Kins.
I don't know. I feel like your home country is great. I would rather live where you live, but I understand that things are a little
You know more
right
about
now.
Britain and the royals than I do. How was the Garter Day? You went down for that. It's kind of strange.
Andrew Lloyd Webber walks past me, and I'm like, "What?" Andrew Lloyd Webber, then Tony Blair, and I know that we're not the biggest fans of Tony Blair here, but I also was like, "Oh my gosh, he coined the People's Princess," and so I was excited to see him. And then Prince William passed me, and my heart literally fell from my chest into my butt. I felt it. I felt the release. It was like, and he just looked an absolute dream. Prince Edward was right there too, but I was uninterested in poor Prince Edward.
But I'll tell you, the Order of the Garter Parade is much more, shall we say, acceptable now that Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is banned from taking part. He's been kicked out of the Order of the Garter, hasn't he?
He has. I met one of his former neighbors who said that he was so relieved when he moved to Sandringham. He was so relieved when he left the neighborhood. I guess there was a real discomfort with him still around. And he literally said, thank God he was removed from the Windsor estate, which I thought was Very interesting.
Yes, certainly. Now, usually you'd come on tomorrow, Kinsey, but I thought I'd better get you on 24 hours early for this sensational breaking news. There are reports, I think we have to just leave it at that, that Meghan Markle is to return to Britain for the first time since Megxit, for the first time since she ran away with Harry from their royal duties to America. Alongside, she's going to come back, according to this report, alongside Prince Harry, Archie and Lilibet, and this is for a one-year countdown party to the Invictus Games, which is set for Britain in a year's time. I mean, first of all, let me ask you this. Do you entirely believe this story is true?
There are two things that jump out at me here. The first one is, I mean, is this originally being reported by Matt Wilkinson or The Telegraph? Because
I've got someone called Bronte Coy reporting for news.com Australia.
Okay, well, here's what I will say.
I think the Sun broke it here in Britain. So, yeah, regards to Matt Wilkinson. I put a lot of store by his journalism, of course.
No, we love Matt.
But, you know, these reports, you get these reports, and you know my viewpoint, Kinsey. I've always doubted whether Meghan will ever set foot in this country again. But, you know, who am I to disagree with this story? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that there's two different points. I mean, last week, while I was still in the UK, sources close to the Sussexes were telling People magazine that Meghan and the children were not expected to attend. And we know that People magazine has a very close relationship, a working relationship, in my opinion, with the Sussexes. They are one of their outlets of choice. So to hear that Meghan and the children will be coming all of the sudden, I'm curious to know really where this story originated, because if we have two competing outlets that we know are both close to the Sussexes, then I would ask you, what game are they playing? What game are we falling for? Because you know as well as I do that last week, when sources close to the Sussex told People magazine Meghan and the children were not coming, it was long past the date that Ravik needed to know whether Meghan and the children were coming to determine.
Ravik is explain to the audience what Ravik is, Kinsey.
Ravik is the security team that the security system that determines what type of security Prince Harry. Are there armed guards waiting for Harry and potentially his family at the airport? And Harry has been fighting to have armed guards every time versus this boutique system where he has to give 28 days notice and his itinerary and his circumstances before Ravik determines exactly what type of security he's going to get. So what game are they playing is my initial reaction. My second reaction is desperate times, desperate measures. Harry and Meghan are so in need of positive press that they're finally going to roll out the children. But what a storm that could potentially create, in my opinion, when they have been showing these bits and pieces of the children from behind their heads over the last few years, the chaos that could create by now being like, and here they are for this UK trip. I sit back and I ask myself, truly, who is thinking, yeah, this is an A-OK situation? But I also wonder if they're so desperate for money, that proximity to the British royal family and attention, that that's where they're at now.
They're desperate to bid for a bit of positive publicity. Now, in terms of bad publicity, serious stories emerging about, as ever, you know, Meghan's weird online store where you can buy mundane domestic products for extremely astronomical prices. You know, things like $15 for a jar of jam, $60 for a candle, etc., etc. Well, you know, as you know, Kinsey, you and I have talked about this many times. I always said that business model is doomed. It's doomed. Anyway, it looks like it might be now. There are stories that she, believing that her jam and tat business success was inevitable, that she went out and bought so much stock million worth of jam and things like that, apparently, that it's now, she hasn't sold it, and she's got so much now stocked up, backlogs in warehouses, that experts, retail experts say there's no way she can sell that by the time all of those foodstuff products get past their sell-by date, which is next summer. That might seem a long way away, but retail experts say she will not be able to offload this stuff, and that will leave her apparently with losses of $5.6 million. And other experts are saying, well, this is it. Time's up. She may have to declare this business bankrupt very soon. So, as ever, does seem to be staring into the abyss.
I mean, I think that's why we're seeing her send gift packages to people that attacked the Princess of Wales. That's a level of desperation that I didn't think we'd ever get to. She's collaborating with lifestyle influencers. You know, the so-and-so has 600,000 followers. And so Meghan's team is reaching out, asking them to post about as ever. I don't think, you know, if you insist you are a duchess, I don't consider this woman a duchess, but if you insist you are a duchess, that you should be having to collaborate with influencers to try to shill your products. I think that people should want it. I mean, from the get-go, I don't think Meghan has ever understood her audience. She has ripped apart and attacked the British royal family, and then she's tried to cosplay one by selling teas and jams and, you know, she's basically cultural appropriation by hijacking all of these uniquely British
yes, we real British people are very culturally offended by what she's doing.
Well, you should be. I know you're kidding, but you should be. I mean, she tears apart the United Kingdom. She has absolutely no respect for it. Has called it racist on multiple occasions. Go sit back and watch the Netflix series where she talks about how racist your country is, or does it through voice of other experts. And then she wants to utilize all of these uniquely, adorably British elements to try to sell a lifestyle brand. I'm sorry, but you've just torn apart this entire country and this family, and you're still trying to pretend to be one of them. No, she should have done her own thing, but she tried to copy and paste the royal playbook. I mean, I think she was sitting in Windsor sitting in Frogmore Cottage, stewing over the fact that there were tea boxes with her face on them, postcards with her face on them, and she was not getting any kickback.
Wasn't making any money out of it, yeah. On that tack, right, so let's get back to this so-called return, Meghan and the kids and Harry coming back to Britain. Now, Harry's obviously been pursuing some kind of reconciliation with his father and indeed the entire family. But we learn now that the king, you know, he's a very mild, meek-mannered kind of a guy, was actually absolutely seethingly furious with Harry after the release of his book Spare, which basically poured a bucket over the entire royal family, including his poor dad, so much so that the king evicted them, Harry and Meghan, from Frogmore Cottage, which they had retained for their returns to the country. He says, no, you can't have that place anymore. He kicked them out. So he's furious. We know William and Kate, you know, if they're never in the same postcode again as Harry and Meghan, it won't be a moment too soon for them. They don't want to ever see them again. So if Harry and Meghan and the kids do come back, Harry's idea that there might be some reunion, even with his dad, but certainly with the rest of the family, good luck with that. That's not going to happen. It's going
to... Do you really think that that's what he wants, or is this just another move by Prince Harry to villainize the royal family? My father refused to see my children when I brought them all the way over to the United. Harry is always positioning his father as the bad guy because that has been professionally lucrative for him. I don't think Harry wants a reunion. I think Harry needs a reunion for his credibility and for his career because he's incapable of doing anything else other than being a royal. He's failed miserably at it. He lost his Spotify deal. Netflix laughed in his face. The Polo series. I mean, he's been a colossal failure at every turn. And I think he needs the royal family. but I don't genuinely think that he's tried. If your father's birthday is being celebrated in the United Kingdom, trooping the color, why the hell is your butt sitting in Texas at
selling burgers, giving burgers to American military veterans? Absolutely right. Very, very strange. Listen, Kinsey, you've been so good that I've decided to give you tomorrow night off. So that's my treat to you. I want you to have a lovely weekend, and hopefully you come on the show on Monday. And I'm doing your podcast next week, so I'll look forward to that. Recollections may vary. But in the meantime, thanks again for a fabulous contribution to the show. That's the remarkable Kinsey Schofield over there in America, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Let's go to break. I should tell you before we do, Duncan Barks is in for Peter Cardwell tonight from 7 until 10 p.m. Let's go to break. Back in a moment.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I should mention that TalkSport's live coverage of England versus Croatia begins actually in about 6 minutes, 7 p.m. But of course, Adrian Durham, the host, will take you all the way through to the game at 9 p.m. on which he will commentate. So full live coverage of England versus Croatia on TalkSport tonight, beginning very, very soon. Big pre-match build-up. Now, let's play a few voice notes. Duncan Barks will be in just a second to tell you what he's got lined up for you from 7 till 10. But first, here's a voice note from Steve on World Cup chanting.
Seeing how much you enjoy reading out that list every time you mention the by-election, I reckon that every time that you mention the World Cup, you should have to read off every nation that's taking part in the World Cup. I reckon you'd love that, wouldn't you, mate?
Yes, I would. That was the wrong one. We got two Steves. Steve was talking about Makerfield. I'm not going to read that list out again. I've done it 3 times this show. You got the idea. You could do it. You could recite it yourself by now, couldn't you? Here is, well, this is the other Steve on World Cup chanting.
I remember a couple of years ago at a NASCAR race, the crowd was singing, F Joe Biden, F Joe Biden. And the CNN reporter said, listen to the crowd, they're singing, let's go Brandon. I wonder what CNN are going to make of their little hero in England being celebrated in the same way, with Keir Starmer is an anchor with a W. It'll be very interesting to see what they have to say about that.
Thanks, Steve. I can imagine a lot of American commentators. I had no idea that the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was a banker. Right, here is our final voice note. That's Jim on Henry Novak.
One thing that really stands out in my mind about the two things you're just talking about, so the murder of Henry Novak and then the the murder of the poor little baby, is how divisive this whole DEI rubbish is. Why can't we just get back to the old Martin Luther King, your character is what counts, your colour, your sexuality, or whatever, doesn't? Because the trouble is it's so damn divisive, and it actually stirs up hatred against certain communities because of the acts of certain bad people. And actually, I think it's making society worse and more divisive. Why can't it be called out for what it is?
Yeah, I think Jim is exactly right. I mean, you know, financial, material equality is a socialist fantasy that can never be achieved. Trying to achieve it is pernicious and divisive. But equality in terms of the way the government, the system, the establishment treats people, that should be completely equal. It shouldn't matter whether you're gay, black, white, whatever. Everybody should be treated equally, and we know that is not the case. We have two-tier everything right now, and at the bottom of the list in terms of favourable treatment, it's white people. Anti-white racism is a serious problem now, and we've got a white guy in the studio. What's going on?
Oh, sorry.
Duncan barks.
Yeah, I think I've missed the quota.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, this is bad. This is bad for the station. But I'm bad enough. You're terrible. What do you got lined up, Duncan?
I've got one question for you, Kev. What is Keir Starmer?
He's a banker. I seriously, I had to negotiate with our compliance officer. I said, "Can I say no? You can't say that. Not until 9 o'clock." Yeah. I said, "What about tosser then?" "Oh, you can say that."
Excellent. Well, you got
bartering, broadcasting bartering.
Absolutely. Well, that's the world we live in. Listen, after 7, I'm in for Peter Cardwell. We'll continue to look at the latest woes facing Keir Starmer. You know, I want Andy Burnham in my camp. Andy Burnham's allies going, he doesn't want